Right. I call to order this meeting of the Town of Hartford Selectboard, June 23rd, 2026 at 6:03 p.m. Tonight we have the chair will not be joining us. So as the presiding officer, vice chair, I will be leading the meeting. We also have Miranda Dupree, who's out today. Our first activity is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would someone like to lead us in that tonight? Thank you, John.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we'll at this point close the select board meeting and open as the local liquor control board. We have several renewal applications, one new applicant. The applicants are here, I believe, Anna and Adrian. We generally, John, I'm looking to you to confirm, do we have them introduce themselves and speak to their application?
Yeah, generally we welcome them, we wish them luck, and we invite them to come to the podium and introduce themselves and say a few words if they'd like.
Thank you.
Pardon?
You can go up together.
You can go if you want to add anything on to whatever is said.
My name is Ana Paula Fernandez.
You're gonna have to speak up.
Oh, yes. My name is Ana Paula Fernandez, and we, Adrian and I, we own two Bistro and Café in 1 Quichi Main Street. It's a Brazilian, Argentinian restaurant, and we opened April 2nd, 3 months ago. We're being very pleased so far with the welcoming from the town and from the neighbors around. And I think this was a good decision since we have been running a chocolate shop in Hanover for the past 13 years. We are both chefs, and we have one more with us, and we wanted to go to the restaurant area and bring our culture and also the flavors that we both travel to this area. So it's been a very unique experience, and we're very happy to be open. Looking forward to receiving our liquor license so we can offer to our customers.
Excellent, thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicants?
I just had one minor question. Because it's capitalized for us, TWO, do you just call it two, or do you call it, is the legal name TWO?
It's two
Okay,
Bistro.
okay, just wanted to make that.
Okay, any other questions? Then I will entertain a motion for that liquor license.
I think you had something you looked like you were gonna say.
I just want to present myself. Adrian Ulysses Abate. I'm from Argentina. And something that she didn't mention, also we have food truck on the side of the restaurant with this open space that is already,
Yeah, we have a food truck outside the cafe, which also has an outside sitting that we're transforming like a beer garden. That's where we like to have customers come in and hopefully have live music, some jazz and some beer and some appetizers and sandwiches.
Great, thank you.
Make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
All right. I move that the select board accept the application, the new application of 2 Bistro and Café LLC, doing business as 2 Bistro and Café, 3 Quichi Main Street, Quichi, Vermont, 05059, for a first-class and outside consumption license.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to replace the word accept with approve.
I accept that.
Okay, great. So we have a motion, a second, All those in favor of approving this application signify so by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Very well, the motion carries and the application is approved. Thank you very much, Anna and Adrian.
And
Thanks,
good luck.
yeah,
for
good
being
luck.
here.
I can't wait to
Congratulations,
come
good luck.
by.
Okay, night. All right, now we have 5 renewal applications, which I believe we can handle as a slate. Are there are any of the applicants in the room for those applications tonight? Are there any online? If you're online, please raise your hand if you want to speak to your application.
I don't think anybody's raising their hand.
Okay, very well. Then I will, are there any questions that the board has on these applicants? Tim, thank you.
I'll try and be brief. When I went through the Cumberland Farms one, it's just kind of interesting from a formatting standpoint, because you have kind of this application, but then underneath violations, there's all these people listed, and I don't even know who they are, and I'm not even clear why they're on there. So in the example, and there's multiple pages, but they have, a guy named Robert Ramsden and Annie Thompson and John Carey and all these people, and like, why are they on here? Why are they kind of under a violation ID header? It's sort of a strange format,
We
but
do have the clerk here in her office
Okay.
processes these
Cool.
applications.
thank you.
This is a supposition on my part, but based on what you've just read, I would suggest those are employees of Cumberland Farms at that particular location. And if they didn't card someone, so to speak, and Cumberland Farms got a violation for that. So Department of Liquor and Lottery monitors that, and that's where those reports come from.
So it has to list all current employees that
Our
are,
application asks for any violations. So they list where those violations are. Sounds like most of those. As you know, Melinda Brooks, our wonderful assistant clerk, does all these liquor licenses, but generally that's what happens, is the violation is assigned to the party that, didn't check the ID properly or accepted.
so
Does that make sense?
if that's real, that's significant.
But what I will say is the state, if they were concerned, if it rises to a level of concern, they could lose their liquor license. You are the first step. We don't monitor violations. We are not the violation police. That falls to the Department of Liquor and Lottery. So we don't have an officer in the town of Hartford to monitor such violations. We're not equipped to do that. That's what the state agency is for. And so they still have to be approved by the state after your review and approval.
So if I may, by the time these applications reach the board, the select board, both your office, your department, and the fire prevention division of the fire department has done their due diligence. And everything from a local level, all of the check boxes have been checked.
And the Hartford Police Department does a
Right.
background check
Police-
for
right.
us as well.
Right,
So
thank you.
there is this level of review and approval, and then the final authorization comes from the state. And not only that, they're the ones who can provide any penalties, if you will, or any suspensions.
Right,
kind of-
so from a local perspective, these are approval ready, is my understanding.
We've
and that's-
gathered all the information that our policy requires and our application asks for.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Any other questions? Okay, then I will entertain a motion for the slate of renewals.
I'll go ahead and read those.
Mary, thank you.
Okay. I move that the select board approve the renewal application of the Skinny Pancake, Queechee LLC, doing business as the Skinny Pancake, 7161 Woodstock Road, Queechee, Vermont, 05059, for first class, third class, and outside consumption license. Also, the select board approved the renewal application of Crazy Chris's Elixir Corporation, doing business as Elixir, 188 South Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001, for a first-class and third-class license. Also, the Select Board approved the renewal application of Teng Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as China Moon Buffet, 96 Sykes Mountain Avenue, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001, for a first-class license. Also, the Select Board approved the renewal application of Roost Brewery, LLC, 230 South Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001, for a first-class and outside consumption license. And lastly, the Select Board approved the renewal application of Cumberland Farms of Vermont, doing business as Cumberland Farms, 8007, 1167 Hartford Avenue, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001, for a second-class tobacco license, tobacco substitute endorsement licenses.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ashley. Any further discussion on these application renewals?
I'm just gonna request that I am able to abstain from the vote on Cumberland Farms. I'm perfectly willing to approve all the other applications in front of us, but in
Okay.
that particular case, I'm gonna,
Maybe Mary should amend her motion to withdraw that particular location so you can vote on the 4.
Okay,
Thank you.
Just suggestion.
so make a friendly amendment to remove Cumberland Farms from the list, and we will vote on numbers 2 through 5.
And, you're okay with that, Ashley, as well, that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the Skinny Pancake, Crazy Chris Elixir, Teng, and River Roost. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of those application renewals, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none. Are there any abstentions on those? None. All right, the motion carries, and those applications are approved. And lastly, I will take a motion on Cumberland Farms application now.
I'll go ahead on that.
Thank you, Mary.
I move that the Select Board renew the application of Cumberland Farms of Vermont, doing business as Cumberland Farms, 8007, 1167 Hartford Avenue, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001, for a second-class tobacco license, tobacco substitute endorsement licenses.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Mike seconds the motion. Any discussion on that one? Hearing none, signifies approval by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions?
Yes.
One abstention. The motion carries and Cumberland Farms renewal is approved. Okay, moving on. We'll close as the local liquor control board. We have no business tonight as the Cannabis Control Board, so we will reopen as the Select Board. Next up is the order of agenda. Does anyone have requests concerning additions, removal, or changes to tonight's agenda?
I believe you do, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.
I do, but I was polling the board first.
Sorry.
Okay, hearing none, I was going to suggest that we move, let's see if I can find it here. Move the approval, so 5F of the MOU for the Fieldhouse usage to immediately before the WABA energy efficiency analysis, assuming that Scott Hausler will be participating in both of those. Just will save us a little bit of shuffling at the table to John's right.
Yeah, I like that idea.
sounds like a good plan.
Okay, well, hearing no objections, then that's what we'll do. Okay, that's our order of agenda tonight. So moving on, we are at the public comment period. We welcome public comments, and in order to accommodate as many voices as possible, we ask people to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And it's not a time for extended discussion. The Select Board is interested in hearing comments and concerns. We have a timer here, which I will try to remember to run. When it beeps, that's your signal to wrap up. If you don't wrap up, I will encourage you to do so. And so anyone, we'll start with folks in the room tonight. Any public comments in the room tonight? And please introduce yourself and your place of residence, please. Thank you.
Hi, Allison Litton, resident of Wilder, French teacher, Hartford High School, and secretary of the Sister Cities Committee. And I'm here to just ask for some, I guess it's clarification regarding the discussion that the select board has had with respect to the organization and procedures of committees, specifically around the strategic plan, which dates from 2024, which is what I can find on the website. I'm interested in hearing from the select board at some point how these recommendations were arrived at. I know for the sister cities, we are all volunteers, and this is going to be the big topic of our upcoming meeting in, what are we? We're in June? July. And there's a lot that I believe that the select board is asking of committees, which is not to say that I disagree with these requests. I'm interested in how the select board came to these recommendations, and specifically how the select board is going to work with these. We do have a select board liaison, Mary, who's been an integral part of our committee over the past couple of months. Huge presence at the block party where we had a table to make our presence known. So this is more I don't want to say a rhetorical question, but I'm hoping that in the future the select board can explain and just talk a little bit more in public about how these recommendations were arrived at, and talk a little bit more about sort of this strategic plan, which I'm hoping is based on these recommendations is going to be on the website soon, since the only documentation I can find is from 2024.
Thank you, Allison. I said I would start the timer, and then I didn't. That feels like about 3 minutes. I will respond to some of your questions. Firstly, the strategic plan, the 2024 version of it is in fact the most recent. And so you have successfully found the most recent version. In terms of next steps and a broader discussion, the board is planning that once we receive more comprehensive feedback from each of the staff liaisons to the committees and commissions. And in the case of Sister Cities, there is no staff liaison, as I understand it, and so we'll be relying on the select board liaison for some feedback. And so at an upcoming meeting, potentially in early July, July 7th, this topic will be on the agenda. And I think we can explore that more thoroughly. And we do want to hear your feedback and understand, and I understand that you want to know what the board's motivation is. And so we can get into that a little bit more at that time. So we will we'll definitely, through your select board liaison, keep you appraised of when that's on the agenda. I don't know when the Sister Cities meeting in July is, but like I said, the board meeting is July 7th, and I think I hope by then we will have more complete feedback and be prepared to discuss the proposal that stands before the board. Tim.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming, and I wanted to speak a little bit to that in the sense of perhaps, thinking about point of origin and so on. And no one on this board wanted that task to be arduous for any committee. I think the thinking is that when we've gone and done a couple of strategic retreats, the discussion is also about how to make kind of optimize committees and make them really effective and engaging. Obviously, we've had challenges with some of them even getting people to serve on committees. So I think part of it is like a kind of a look at that and kind of a refresher of like, oh, okay, who's working on what and what are we have some exciting new synergies we're seeing with, a couple committees that could, I'm not gonna say merge, but they could work together on some key issues. So it was never, the intentions were never to like burden these committees with work. It was more like, what's everybody working on and what are the opportunities to really optimize that for the town? I think it was kind of the point of origin for that, so.
Thank you, thank you, Tim.
Thank you for that, I appreciate that.
All right, any other public comment in the room? All right, do we have any hands online, Mike?
No.
Okay, then we will close public comment and move on to select board comments and announcements. Would anyone on the board like to start us off with comments and announcements?
Yeah, I just, this is just a little bit of a reflection, and maybe we could have this come up as a point of discussion at a future meeting, but I read the health officer updates every time. I really appreciate getting those reports. They really speak to me to a lot of stress in the community that people are facing. And I wrote down here, community strain in the areas of tenant conditions, maintenance, in particular mobile home parks. Shouldn't we be pressing for new policies and requirements for rental properties, and in particular mobile home parks, to meet and comply with some suitable standards? Because it just seems like time and time again, if you look at the demands of that job and the responses and the hard work that they do, I think we're kind of missing the mark on some key kind of community quality of life issues that I think we need to get our head around and develop perhaps some new policies, new regulations and so on that really speak to that and really help the people that are actually living in those situations. So that's kind of, I was just really reflecting on that, and I just feel like it's really an important topic that we all notice, I'm sure, but if we could somehow like get our head around that and come up with some new strategies, I think that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, Ashley?
Sure, yeah, just to say that the Hartford Block Party this past week was a huge success, and yeah, it was just really encouraging to see how many people turned out and all the good positive energy and all the cool organizations in our community that were tabling, and committees and town divisions, and yeah, just really feeling grateful to be part of Hartford. It's like my favorite event of the year after Green Up Day, because I think I said Green Up Day was my favorite in May.
All right, thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I'd like to also compliment people on the work that they did for the block party and also for Juneteenth on Saturday. Although the weather was a little iffy in the beginning, but everything came out sunshiny and bright. And there were, I think, I received notice that there were 600 hot dogs that were eaten at the block party.
Does that break the Coney Island record at all?
I don't know, but
That's not by a single person.
not
That's
by
the
a
entire
single
crowd.
Point of clarity.
Yes, but while we're thinking about, or maybe we're not thinking about food, I just wanted to let people know that there's a lot of concern, of course, about food and food insecurity in Vermont, and that there are 2 programs in the state available to help close the food gap, the squeeze of high prices of groceries. And one is called Summer Meals, and it feeds kids for free all summer long. You have to be under 18. They also have a program called Crop Cash, which doubles your food dollars at farmers markets. And again, these are things that will help provide aid to those people who may be food insecure. There is an application form to fill out, and right now, the only place I know that you can contact at least for this is Bernie Sanders' office, but I'm sure there are other places that would fill you in on that. But that's one place to go right away. You could call or email, and they will send you the information.
Thank you. Mike?
Not really anything extra, just to echo, I was at both the block party and Juneteenth, and they were excellent. Just great energy, a lot of people, a lot of great conversations. I think that's it, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. And my comment will be to sort of tag on to looking forward. So we had some past events that have been recognized. Looking forward, we have the Hartford High School Alumni Parade, Saturday, June 27th, starting at Lyman Point Park at 11 a.m., I believe. The poster for it,
10:30 is the kickoff.
Yeah.
10:30 is the kickoff, sorry. 10:30 at Lyman Point Park, is that correct? I'm looking at the,
Last year it was different.
They kicked off, I think, across the way at the school.
Yeah, they,
Pine
you know,
Street
just a
with the-
little bit before Stearns and those,
If you're in the parade.
If you're in
just
the parade.
attending the parade.
that's
Oh.
where it
Lyman
actually
Point Park.
starts.
all
Yeah.
right, you can find more information about it on the Town of Hartford website. But it is Saturday, the 27th.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Are we, John, last year, I remember coordinating, I know you sent out an email, or maybe Phil Sargent did, about what board members are attending the parade this year.
As
But I
I
don't
am-
think I've seen anything.
As I understood it, one of the organizers, Sherry Torrey, has polled individual members of the select board and found out whose needs a ride in what vehicle. So I know I was reached out to, and I think I heard from her that she had reached out and heard from a member or two on the select board. So I don't know if that sounds familiar to anybody.
She probably has reached out to newer people, because some of us have already been part of that, so I would think Mike might be.
I don't think I heard.
If there's
yeah, I
any,
haven't
if there's
gotten
any of you
anything.
who would like to be considered for maybe a ride in one of the vehicles in the parade, let me know and I'll see if I can find you a home.
I mean, if
Okay.
we're not being asked to, I don't think we need to go asking, but I had heard something about it months ago and I haven't heard anything since, so that's why I wanted to follow up.
All right, well, keep us posted if you hear anything, John.
Okay, I will do it that way. I can introduce you all to Sherry Torrey, who's been making those plans. I don't know what she might have available at this stage for rides, but I think also there might be other options beyond Sherry Torrey's vehicles. So let her know that she should reach out to all of you individually. How's that?
Fair enough.
Sure, thank
Okay.
you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I think that concludes our select board comments. So moving on to appointments. Tonight, we have several appointments to committees and commissions. Starting with a reappointment of Crystal Pearson-Moses to the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund Committee for a 3-year term. Is Crystal's not in the room, is she online, Mike? Okay, she does not need to be as a reappointment. And so are there any questions, comments about Crystal Pearson-Moses's application for reappointment? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Barry?
Sure. Since I'm on design review, I move that the select board reappoint Crystal Pearson-Moses to the design review board for a 3-year term beginning June 9th, 2026 and ending June 7th, 2029.
It's the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund Committee that we are appointing her to, I believe. Am I,
No, I've got design.
That's what I have as well, mine.
Yes, that's what I have in my
Okay.
cheat sheet, sorry to say.
okay,
I just printed this out today.
okay, so, here, would you like to read from the?
Sure.
Yeah, there is a mistake.
I move that I'm gonna restate it, so please accept a friendly amendment to redo this. Move that the Select Board reappoint Crystal Pearson-Moses to the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund Committee for a 3-year term beginning June 9th, 2026, and ending June 7th, 2029.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second from Tim. Any further discussion? Hearing, go ahead, Ashley.
Just to point out the mistake that Mary was talking about, it does say on page 95 of the agenda packet that it is for the Hartford Revolving Loan Fund Committee, but on the page above that, on the actual board application, it says revolving, no, they both say revolving loan fund. So I just want to point out in the agenda packet.
It seems to be the second time in a row that you've had, or that at least you have noted that
Yeah.
there's a mistake in the
This
packet.
I printed off from our
Ali had
agenda
explained
packet.
it to me in a way that made me think that maybe you're looking at a different version of what's been posted, but
I
I'll tell
go
you
to the
what,
Town of Hartford website
let
when I go
me look into it further
Okay.
and try to get a better explanation of what is
I
happening.
guess I,
Quite confident that Crystal is applying to the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund where she has served.
Yes.
okay, you do know.
Yeah, I am
Okay.
confident of that.
Okay, cool. That was the
And-
only
and
thing I wanted to make sure of.
I see Tim nodding his head, he's the liaison, so
Oh.
I think we're on the right path here. So we've got a motion, we've got a second, we've had some discussion, I think we're good. All those in favor of Crystal's reappointment to the Hartford Business Revolving Loan Fund, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? No. The motion, the ayes have it and the motion carries and Crystal is reappointed. But next we have the reappointment of Dylan Kreis to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term. Any questions or comments on that application? Dylan's not in the room. Do we see him online, Mike?
He is online.
He is online. Dylan, please go ahead and raise your hand if you would like to speak to your application.
There we go. All right, I'm gonna. Should be allowed to talk now? Dylan?
Go ahead, Dylan.
Hello,
Please
can you hear me?
introduce yourself and your, tell us your place of residence and any comments that you have regarding your application for renewal.
Yep, my name is Dylan Kreis. I live in Waiver Junction, obviously a village of Hartford. Just appreciate you folks reconsidering me for reappointment. Really enjoyed my time serving on the Planning Commission, getting a better understanding of the planning process and how that fits into the town as a whole. Learned a lot. I have a lot more to learn. And if I'm reappointed, I will do my best to keep doing the work for the community.
All right, thank you, Dylan. Thank you for joining us tonight. Any questions for Dylan from the board? Okay, hearing none, I am ready to entertain a motion for reappointment of Dylan.
Want me to do it? All right, I make a motion that we accept the reappointment of Dylan Kreis to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term beginning June 23rd and ending on June 22nd, 2029.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Friendly amendment, since I said accept first and then I was told to put approve instead.
I'm sorry. I'll accept that. Sorry.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ashley seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of reappointing Dylan Kreis to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the ayes have it, the motion carries, and Dylan's reappointed. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dylan.
Thank you, Dylan.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
Good night. And lastly, in our appointments, we have the appointment of Anabella Fiorelli to the Hartford Committee for Racial Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term. Anabella, we have a endorsement from the chair of the H. Corey, which we take seriously. And so you don't have to sell yourself. Consider this a friendly conversation and let us know where you're from, your name, and any additional comments that you want to add to supplement your application. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anabella Fiorelli. I live in Waiver Junction of the town of Hartford. Couple reasons I want to be on the H-Corps board, just so you get a little idea of what I want to do. I'm 15. I'm an incoming sophomore at Harford High School. Just up the road. I've been doing equity work for almost 4 years now, just in multiple different committees at my school, including more casual, like lunch meetings, things like that. And most recently this year, I got invited to be a student representative on Harvard's District Equity Board. And I really appreciate the opportunity. I've served on it for about a year now. I believe I will be serving on it again next year and hopefully the rest of my high school career. I have found that there's been overwhelming need in the last couple of years for student representation, especially in equity matters. Given I know a lot of adults at Harvard High School and just in general make their best assumption and ideas about what's happening in the schools and what's happening around the town of Hartford. But I found, like, especially in this community, when you use community ideas and representation, there's also a great need for student representation. I have found over the last year of serving on that committee that there's been many times where they were like, oh, I never would have realized that if you had not said that, or I would have never figured out that opinion if you were not in here and representing students. So I would really like to be on this committee. I was recommended by Julia Lau, the equity coordinator at Harford High School. She had briefed me a little bit about HCORI, and it sounds like a very equitable and a board trying to make change, which I really hope to be on. I find this, the student voice is very well needed, and I'm trying to achieve that. I sat down with the committee last week, Thursday, just to kind of get a sense of what's happening there. What I can tell, there's a lot of good decisions and a lot of good voices happening, and I really would appreciate being a part of it. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anabella, and thank you for applying and joining us tonight. Any questions for Anabella? Mary?
It's not a question. I just want to let you know that I was very impressed by your speech on Saturday. Takes a lot of bravery to get up in front of a group. And one little hint, and I know you were probably nervous because even though I've been on the board, sometimes I get nervous too. Speak a little slower. We can hear more of what you say. I mean, and I only know that because when I was in high school, I took speech and debate, and I learned early on, slow down, because when you're nervous, you go really fast. But you were terrific. You have great personality, and your ideas are very important. And I know that this board I've been on as a liaison to HCORI as well, and it'll be great. You'll love it, and you'll feel even more professional as time goes on.
I really appreciate that. I did speak at the Juneteenth event on Saturday. It's my first speech, so I really appreciate any feedback anyone has. And I think it will be a good fit for me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Any other questions or comments?
Just say, yeah, I was so impressed by your application. I can tell you put a lot of thought into it, and your resume is outstanding, especially for your age. So yeah, I'm really excited. HCORI is such an important committee in the town, and I know they've been struggling to keep membership up. And I think this is such a great, what's the word I'm looking for?
Opportunity?
Not opportunity, but basically a gift to the committee. Like you're an asset. That's the word. You'll be such a great asset to this committee. And yeah, just thank you for stepping up.
Of course, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right.
One thing I should just point out procedurally is my understanding is this needs to be a joint appointment by the school board and the select board. So maybe this is the first step within the school board needing to appoint you as well. It's my understanding.
Right, that sounds familiar. Thank you for reminding us of that, John. All right, I am ready to entertain a motion, if there is one, for Anabella's appointment.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ashley, go ahead.
I move that we approve the appointment of Anabella Fiorelli to the Hartford Committee for Racial Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term beginning June 23rd, 2026 and ending June 22nd, 2028.
motion, do we have a second?
I'll second the
We
motion.
have a second from Mary. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Anabella to the H. Corey Committee for a 2-year term, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? No, it's unanimous, the motion carries. Thank you, Anabella, and
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
look forward to hearing updates from you periodically and the committee.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
Before we move off of H. Corey, because of the content in the packet this week, including the charge, I recognize that the select board is supposed to appoint 2 members of the board to serve on this committee, I believe. And I believe currently we just have Miranda. So I think, John, if you would, maybe we can capture that for a future discussion.
Yes.
At the 7/7 meeting or
Yes.
sometime thereafter to discuss with the board and to confirm, first of all.
Yeah.
And then potentially appoint a second member of the select board if appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
When I was on the board, it was only one person as well. I mean, when I was on the board as a liaison.
Okay, well, it's
So I
possible
don't know
I
how long.
misunderstood it,
I
but,
don't know.
I will look into it and follow up with you, and Ida as well.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, no, it does say 2 select board members.
I'm sorry, Ashley?
I was just saying, yeah, that in the Constitution, it does say 2 select board members and 2 school board members, not 1 of each.
Right, and it sticks in my mind that years ago, there were some, there were kerfuffle around the 2 appointments, and so, but we should confirm, and then we'll proceed from there, so, great. I think at this point, we're up to the town manager report, so over to you, John.
Great, thank you very much. I'll start by saying I'm pleased to report the town has hired its new HR director and executive assistant to the town manager, who will begin work on Monday, July 6th. Details to follow. The finance department has hired 2 finance specialists. The first, who has high-level Vermont municipal experience, began work on Tuesday, June 16th. The other person with a strong accounting background will begin work on or about July 20th, at which time the department will be fully staffed with 4 for the first time in many moons. The select board will need to approve municipal tax rates sometime in early July, after the grand list has been lodged by the assessor's office and the state has announced education tax rates. The education tax rates come with little notice, and we must send out tax bills no later than July 14th, which is 30 days before the first payment due date of August 14th. So advance notice of a special select board meeting devoted to this purpose may be quite brief. We'll do our best to make it as transparent and available to the community as possible. I wanted to let the board know that the owner of the Coolidge Hotel block has requested some time in executive session during the July 7th select board meeting to present additional contractual proposals regarding a possible town role in the future redevelopment of that parcel. Select board members, please stay tuned for more information along those lines. The VLCT special meeting did not go forward because it was canceled. The action came because the VLCT learned that efforts to consolidate member purchasing power would not reduce health insurance rates for members in 2027. As a result, VLCT will not offer a health insurance plan to members next year. Following up on Eric's words about what's coming up, I can report that for this summer, the Sherman Aquatic Facility opened last week and the pool is ready for a summer of fun. As Eric and others have mentioned, the Alumni Parade is Saturday, the 27th. We'll kick off at 10:30. It's also a special celebration of America's 250th birthday, so there'll be a picnic to follow. So hang around after the parade. And don't miss Hartford's annual Independence Day celebration at Kilowatt Park on the 4th of July. Festivities begin at 5:30 with live music hopefully cooked and prepared food, and family activities as we celebrate our 250th birthday. A quick reminder, town offices will be closed Friday, July 3rd. The transfer station will be open on that day, but closed on Saturday, July 4th. We hope you'll enjoy your summer season. Follow the town of Hartford on social media for the latest news, events, and updates, and have a great summer. I did want to point out a couple of highlights, not many, Mr. Vice Chair. From SIGAX, I wanted to point out that as part of this grand list lodging process, grievance hearings were held last week, and that will allow the values to be finalized and the grand list set perhaps next week. The folks at DPW are pleased to have full staffing at the transfer station. They've hired back a former part-time employee at the recycling center, and it's great for them to have a full staff at the transfer station. Fire department notes that members of the department successfully staffed the medical tent at the recent Covered Bridges Half Marathon. Crews additionally provided medical services for incidents involving race participants located within the town. This resulted in approximately 30 patient care interactions and 3 transports to the hospital. The Fire Rescue Engine Committee has completed its work and will present the apparatus replacement proposal to the Select Board at the July 7th meeting. Both of the units identified for replacement are approaching the end of their 20-year service life, resulting in increasing maintenance demands and declining reliability. The police department notes that on June 11th, HPD Criminal Investigations Division arrested a 65-year-old male from Woodstock on child luring charges after a months-long investigation. HPD wants to announce also that it has received a monetary grant for $30,000 from the Windsor County Special Investigations Unit / the Family Place. This funding will directly support the Criminal Investigations Division purchase of additional equipment and resources to support their investigations. On June 10th, Hartford officers responded to a report of suspicious activity and made an arrest for someone with an outstanding warrant out of New Hampshire on the original charge of possession of a controlled drug, a Class B felony. On June 12th, Hartford officers responded to the intersection of Route 14 and Jericho Street for a 2-vehicle crash with suspected injury and smoke observed coming from one of the vehicles. The operator was placed under arrest on a suspicion of driving under the influence. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions for the town manager? Tim?
Just one brief comment related to the potential executive session. You know, I don't know how long ago it was, but we kind of effectively, as a select board, I wasn't on the select board at the time, approved kind of what we'll call a tier 1 of this PPP, which is this private-public partnership structure. It's a pretty well-crafted document that has 3 tiers, identifying kind of key milestones, if you will, or attributes that need to be discussed and kind of ironed out. And I just really encourage, hopefully, David and his development group to really hone in on that so that when we do go into executive session, it's highly effective and we have a lot of content to work with. And if anybody needs a copy of that document, I have it, the original PPP kind of tiered structure. And again, it has some very good information that just gets you kind of thinking about this, this topic.
And planning staff and I have been in touch with the owner and the developer, notifying them of the importance to hit certain points in whatever written presentation they have, so that it's a brief meeting, focused meeting, and productive meeting. So we're mindful of the select board's valuable time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good comment, Tim. And I would just add that as part of the expectation setting, the board, I think the private sector has been notified that the board may not make a decision, or will not likely make a decision immediately. So if we receive proposals, we need the time to deliberate and reflect on them, adequate time before we respond to them. And so that evening, if and when it occurs, will be information gathering and an opportunity for questions for the board. So we are trying to put a little bit more structure and sort of fill in around that PPP structure that you note. So, any other questions for John? I have one before we move on. I have two before we move on, John. With respect to disposed needles, this has been an issue that's come up a number of times. We've had a conversation back and forth with staff and some board members, and I'm a little unclear as to what the next steps are. And I hope during an upcoming meeting, we could lay out for the public what the next steps are. So this is not an area of expertise that I am comfortable in, and I don't know what the value is of collecting this information. So in other words, what's the cost benefit? So what will we do with the data is part of the question, and the crime data analyst raises some good questions about the integrity and consistency of the data. But we need to move forward with this and answer them and get back to the public and let people know either we're not doing it, we're doing it, or we have some plan forward. And so unless the board objects to that, I would ask that we visit that in an upcoming meeting. And similarly, on the park and ride lighting, we know this is a safety issue and it's been on the docket for a while. And I was hoping, I know that there's a lot of work going on and the staff is capacity constrained, but I was hoping that in an upcoming meeting, we could at least get a timetable and be able to communicate to the public when that project might be finished. So August, like not specifically a date, but a range, like it's going to be done in August or September or so on. And hopefully that is before winter, because that would obviously impact construction there. So unless there's objection from any board members, okay, I'm hearing none.
That sounds valid.
Thanks.
Because I concur with I'd like to have an understanding of the value point for that effort.
Great. All right, I think we're ready to move on to board reports, motions, and ordinances. And the first item under that is additional interviews of applicants for the Opioid Fund Grant Review Committee. Do we have any applicants in the room for that committee? Do we have any applicants online? If you're online and you're listening to us, please go ahead and raise your hand and we will unmute you and allow you to participate in an interview with the board, which is a requirement for appointment to that committee.
Point of information, if you're not familiar with Zoom, there's actually a button called raise hand in case you have not used Zoom before.
Thank you for clarifying that. Anything, Mike?
Negative.
Okay, so we have no interviews then for the Opioid Fund Grant Review Committee. So we'll move on to additional interviews of applicants for the Twin Pines Housing Task Force.
I was under the impression that Erin Brown might be intending to be interviewed tonight. Don't know if she's online.
Looked like it, no.
Erin, if you're using a different handle on Zoom, please click the raise your hand button and we will unmute you. And I assume that we have no applicants in the room. Okay, very well. So we're good, Mike? Okay. So we have no additional applicants to interview, so we will not be, it will not be necessary to go into executive session to discuss applicants. And we're ready to move on to item C, which is to appoint additional members to the Opioid Grant Review Committee. So, I believe the only business we have to do on this agenda item is to appoint select board members. And the plan, I believe, was to appoint 2 members of the select board to serve on this committee, which will review proposals to the RFP and make a recommendation to the select board. Proposals are due, the first round of proposals is due July 1st. So I would imagine that sometime during the month of July, there'll be some work on this activity. There are a number of members of the community, affected members, as well as service professionals, social service professionals that have expertise in this area. And so the chair points out to me that if you don't feel like this is your area of expertise, don't be daunted, because there are public health professionals that are serving on this committee. And maybe we just need voices, additional voices to help sort through these proposals and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and nominate the chair, Ida Griesemer, to serve on this committee. And we're looking for 1 other board member, and don't hesitate to self-nominate.
Does it mean to nominate people who aren't here, who haven't consented?
I don't think that's a good idea.
Well, no, I think we want to avoid that, because we don't know what their workload is and whether they,
Yeah, it's a shame that Miranda's not here tonight, because I know that she did some work with Ida on this, I think. So to me, that was kind of where my mind naturally went. But yeah, given the timeline, we might not be able to wait until she is present to make that decision.
I'm willing to serve, and then if indeed the timing works where she can fulfill the role instead, and she would like to do that, I'm happy to concede. So if that's a procedurally a suitable way to do it, I'm happy to jump in and fill that role for round 1 of these applicants, or whatever we're talking about.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I have no objections to it, and there, like you said, there are 2 rounds, and so maybe that's an opportunity to switch things up. Any other thoughts? All right, so we have a nomination of Ida and a nomination of Tim.
I don't generally enjoy self-nominating, but I did. So
It's
I
perfectly.
appreciate you doing that. I will be gone most of July, so.
don't expect it in the future.
All right, so can I get a motion to make these appointments to the Opioid Grant Review Committee? Ashley.
Sure, I move that we appoint Ida Griesemer and Tim
Ferriel.
Ferriel
Go with that.
to the Opioid Grant Review Committee.
Thank you. We have a
Sir-
motion?
Are we appointing or nominating?
Appointing at this point.
Okay, okay.
Do I need to put a timeline?
I think the timeline is the duration of the committee,
Okay,
if that's
for
acceptable.
the duration of the committee.
Okay, if that's acceptable to all. We have a motion on the floor to make 2 appointments to the committee. Is there a second?
A second.
Mike seconds it. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Ida and Tim to the Opioid Grant Review Committee for the duration of the committee, please signify so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion carries, and we have our 2 select board members on the Grant Review Committee. Thank you very much. On to agenda item D, to appoint additional members to the Twin Pines Housing Task Force. So we have no new applications tonight, but in reviewing some notes, I realized that we did not approve appointments of the Twin Pines staff, of the Twin Pines board member, of the Housing and Homelessness Committee representative, and of the Town of Hartford staff. And so in order to give the green light to that committee, I think we should make those appointments tonight so that, and do that bit of housekeeping. I have some motions that I can read to simplify things, and then, so that you don't have to repeat them, anyone that wants to make the motion can just say so moved, and that'll set us up. Any questions on that? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion, or can I get a motion to appoint Jenny Gibson, Managing Director of Property Management, and Jennifer Hobbs, Director of Support Services, to the Twin Pines Housing Task Force as the Twin Pines Housing Trust staff representatives?
So moved.
A motion, a second?
Go ahead.
Mike seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please.
Yeah, just one comment. I was reflecting on this a little bit more since the last meeting. Just that it is, I may be surprised that the executive director was not part of the, will not be part of the committee. And yeah, I just, I'm totally okay with the two, and I think the positions of the staff they've recommended make a lot of sense, being property management and residential service coordination. But yeah, I guess I did just want to mention that it is, you know, that we invite the executive director to join in on the committee meetings at any time, and hopefully there's a positive feedback there.
Okay, so noted. Mary?
I'm assuming this is a public meeting.
Yes.
So he may just attend as public. So I would think he would plan on that, but just not be a member of it.
Okay. So there's a motion, there's a second to make these staff appointments to the committee from Twin Pines. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, please signify that you approve the motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? No, it's unanimous, and so we appoint Jenny Gibson and Jennifer Hobbs to serve as the representatives from Twin Pines. Next, I have a motion to appoint John Dunham to the Twin Pines Housing Task Force as the Twin Pines Housing Trust Board representative on that committee.
Also moved.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
A second from Ashley. Any discussion on John Dunham's appointment as the board representative to this committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. The motion carries. We appoint John Dunham. Motion to appoint Nancy Trottier to the Twin Pines Housing Task Force as the Housing and Homelessness Committee representative.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mary. You a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second from Tim. Thank you. Any discussion on Nancy's appointment? Hearing none, please signify approval of the motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and we appoint Nancy Trottier from the Homeless and Housing Committee. And lastly, a motion to appoint Alexis Webster as the Town of Hartford staff liaison to the Twin Pines Housing Task Force.
So moved.
Motion from Mary.
I'll second the motion.
Second from Tim. Any discussion on Lexi's appointment? All right, hearing none, please signify approval by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? There are none. That's unanimous. I say aye as well. And the motion carries, and we appoint Lexi to the task force. And I think that rounds out,
Can you remind me who our select board liaison is?
it's Ashley.
Okay,
And we appointed Ashley at the last meeting.
Yes.
We just didn't do these rest of these
yeah,
staff and board appointments.
thank you.
So I think that takes care of all of the work that we need to do under agenda item D. Hearing no objections, we will move on to agenda item 5E, which is to consider a request to hang banners on town light poles. We have a representative from White River Junction Pride to speak to that application. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your application, and then we will see if the board has any questions for you. Thank you.
Allison Litton, resident of Wilder, Vermont. And we are looking to hang 9 banners on town poles using town hardware directly in the town of White River. The dates are the 10th through the 26th of July. We tend to shift our Pride celebrations a little bit after the month of June, just because, I mean, who doesn't want to extend a party? And I believe you have the application in your packet.
We do, and we have the artwork, which is very nice, very cool. Thank you, Allison. Does anyone on the board have questions for Allison regarding this application for hanging banners? Tim?
I think this is great. I was wondering whether you guys would consider, I know that with the Hometown Heroes, they've done Hartford Village, and I haven't actually been out to Queechee to see if they're out there, but I think it's a nice gesture to touch the other villages with these things when we can. So if you guys would consider that, I'm not suggesting perhaps for this round, but maybe next round, so.
Certainly would. It's definitely a funding question. We are a nonprofit, so finding the money to create the banners is always a struggle, but I appreciate that thought, and we'll certainly bring it back to the committee as
Cool.
an indication of your support. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions, comments from the board? I have one, Allison, perhaps more of a comment. I backed through some information, and it looks like Hartford Heroes is planning to remove some of their banners. I think it said mid-July, and so if there are light poles where White River Junction Pride wants to put banners, I would suggest just coordinating through John just to make sure that we're not, there was a past incident where some banners were removed and not all the parties were completely happy. So
Oh, yeah, we certainly don't want to,
Right.
step on anyone's toes, but
if there are
John, I'll
banners
reach
in
out to you
place,
and just-
maybe the town manager can
Yeah, I
help
might put you in
coordinate that.
touch with Dennis Brown, who's handling the Hometown Heroes banners.
Okay. I will make a note of that. Ooh, there's a pencil here. That's so handy.
Okay,
Not anyone that one would want to steal because it's so small.
all right.
Unless they're playing golf.
Yeah, I know. These are the pencils I keep in my classroom, the short ones. Kids don't steal those.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a request to hang 9 banners in White River Junction for White River Junction Pride from July 10th to the 26th. I am ready to entertain a motion.
I'll go for that.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that the select board approve Pride's hanging banners on White River Junction's town light poles. Do I need to say how many?
Please, and the date range.
Okay. Request to hang Pride's banners, 9 banners on town light poles, July 10th through the 26th.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Tim seconds it. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? I believe it is unanimous. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Really
you.
appreciate it.
All right, that moves us down to designating the town clerk as the records officer. So we're ready for you finally, Lisa. Thank you for your patience.
I will try to be brief because I know you have much more to go.
Right, if you could, we have read the memo, and it is very descriptive, so if there's anything that you want to add for our information tonight, please do so, otherwise we'll just turn it over to the board for questions. We understand that in 2023, the town learned that we can transfer birth and death records to the state for permanent storage. Doing so would free up some much-needed vault space, which is exciting. You're estimating $500 for courier shipping and transfer of the documents, and BSARA requires a records officer to sign off on the transfer.
True statement. It also, I'll just say that the state established its portal in 2019, so we can't use those records out of our vault anyway. So they're taking up space for something we couldn't give the public anyway. So now everything has to go through the portal, and that's largely for people's privacy. There were some, there's a lot of personal information on the older documents. So I'm just here to ask you, you have the option, when there's an appointed clerk like myself, you have the option to have the chair of the select board be the records officer, or you can appoint or authorize the clerk to do it. It seems more logical to have the clerk do it to me in terms of timing and efficiency, so that's what I'm asking for.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for the town clerk? Mary?
Lisa, you talked about, it's like 20-some boxes.
It's 28 boxes. I
And-
think Rachel Garvey has done all this heavy lifting on this.
Right.
And she calculated based on the number of volumes that it would be 28 fairly substantial,
Right.
more substantial than a banker's box.
Are you gonna need to ask somebody to help you, or are you going to get a
We hope
car
to
that's
have
big?
We hope to have a courier service.
Okay,
The state comes to White River 2 or 3 times a year to gather state agency materials and documents. We're hoping we can tap onto that, but if we can't, the goal is to hire a courier service
Okay.
that is a state vendor to do that. I have the option to do it myself,
right,
if need be, but
Okay.
I'm hoping it doesn't come to that.
Yeah.
But we could if it would, get the process moving along.
yeah. I just didn't want you to have to do it
Yeah,
like
no, we'll-
twice, because you couldn't fit it all in your car.
We'll figure it out if we
Okay.
can't get a courier service to do it for us. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Any additional questions for the town clerk on this signing a records officer? If not, there is a motion on packet page 133 that I'm ready to entertain. Ashley?
Thank you. I move that we appoint Lisa O'Neill, Hartford Town Clerk, as Records Officer for the purposes of transferring vital records, birth and death records, to the Vermont State Archives and record administration for permanent storage.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? I believe it is unanimous. John, we have the motion carries. We have a records officer appointed for this transfer. Thank you, Lisa.
Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
Happy to help with that project. Or we could call the Hartford football team and see if they're willing to pitch.
All right, well, very timely. We are up to agenda item 5H, considering the award contract for the town hall HVAC consultant. So please come on up, Dana. And Richard. So, thank you.
So.
Hello. I'm going to introduce this, and then we'll see where we go from there. We understand that there have been a long history of problems with the current HVAC system at Town Hall. Anyone not familiar with the reasons that the town is seeking to replace the current HVAC system can find the issues described in the memo on packet page 162 of the April 28th, 2026 agenda packet. Thank you for documenting that, Dana. At that meeting, the select board reviewed and had no objections to releasing an RFP for consulting services. Tonight, we have four proposals that have been submitted. Tonight, we are looking at those proposals. We have a detailed and structured analysis from Energy Commission member Richard Otis. I believe you're Richard. Thank you for being here tonight. And a recommendation from staff for a vendor that will make, the vendor will make recommendations for replacing the system, help guide the town through selecting an installer and oversee the installation and commission it or oversee the commissioning of the system. The proposals differed significantly in their service delivery models and costs and levels of involvement. It took some work to get sort of coalesce that into a recommendation. Thank you, Dana, for taking the time to present that information in the memo. If you downloaded the packet on Friday, not all of the memo was included, so the most up-to-date agenda packet includes the full memo with the recommendation. And thank you very much, Richard, to your very detailed work, much appreciated. So staff recommends a design bid build service delivery model, specifically awarding the contract to LN Consulting. Anything that you would like to, either of you would like to add to that before we turn it over to the board for questions?
No, LNN was going to be one of the companies that I actually recommended, either that or CES Associates. CES had too many terms and conditions that were unfavorable to the town, especially from a legal standpoint. I'm more of a private sector, so I'm not as familiar with some of the municipal law, but one of the big things that stood out to me was the arbitration, where CES being more of a New England-based company, your arbitration would have been more in New Hampshire or Connecticut rather than Vermont, and that was probably one of my biggest red flags. They had certain things that were unfavorable in terms of their conditions of not notifying the town if they went up a certain percentage of their cost overruns, which I also do not think is reasonable for a municipal effort of this stature either. So LNN from a design bid perspective has the, at least I would say, the most efficient proposal. And then obviously CX is a slightly different proposal, just based on the fact that they won't actually issue the stamped drawings, they're a design bid build. So either way I would have been fine with, I was just wanted to provide my own recommendations from what I looked through.
And I also like LNN because I know they are familiar with direct pay, which is the tax program for untaxed entities, where you get a tax incentive through filing with the IRS and get that amount in a check. And that's become extremely complicated now with the current administration and deadlines and whatnot. So I want to make sure we have guidance on that as well, because they can do up to 30% of project cost.
Okay, yeah, that's non-trivial. Okay, well, thank you for your attention to detail on this and for sort of coalescing what was sort of the, you know, it was confusing for the board, and we needed really direct guidance, and I really appreciate the 19-page memo and structured analysis and the very specific recommendation. Any questions from the board on this proposal and recommendation? Ashley?
Yeah, I guess just to the design build versus bid build options, I guess my own personal thoughts are that design build is just feels like a little bit of a safer bet because there's not as much opportunity to pass the buck, to point fingers, to kind of deflect accountability and troubleshoot problems. So I guess one, I'm just curious how you both feel about that kind of instinct that a design build process would give us a little more certainty, a little less room for more continuity. And then my second question is just the biggest downside, I think, of the CX that does the design build is that they don't provide engineer stamped plans. Is that correct? So my question is, how easy is it if you have a fairly, you know, a professional design to have another engineer review and stamp it? Like, is that a super big challenge?
It will depend on their skill set. So one of the interesting things about CX Associates is many of them are actual professional engineers, which I found slightly confusing that they won't actually stamp their own drawings, which just triggers some red flags in myself. Like, for instance, any sort of thing in New Hampshire, again, I primarily work in New Hampshire rather than Vermont, we always look for staff that has significant experience stamping their drawings from a perspective of if they put their stamp on it, they put their name on it, and they risk their legal liability for it. So at least for my company where I work, we tend to prefer firms that will actually be willing to design and stamp their own drawings.
So from the perspective of comparing then having a design build firm who doesn't stamp their own drawings versus having a design firm who will stamp it and then putting it out to bid, I guess, yeah, what's your or Dana's thoughts on for long-term process, which feels like a better route?
I don't have a strong inclination either way. I think we'll make either work.
And again, I'm not as familiar with municipal. I believe in my memo, I even made a statement where I'm not sure if you can get external funding or external help or grants potentially with actual stamp drawings in hand. That was just something that I would like to look into. For myself, again, I'm more from the private sector. If I'm actually requesting funding for a larger project, I always have to have design stamp drawings. And even for getting matching funding, I usually always have to have stamp drawings in hand, so I just wanted to bring that up as a recommendation.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the memo, a lot of the funding that I'm familiar with, that I've seen, as far as grants, is out there to encourage folks to go green, to go electric, to make efficiencies. And because our building is already highly efficient, that wouldn't be applicable in this situation, because we're replacing with a like or equally efficient system. Theoretically, they're not going to take into account that the system doesn't work.
Right. I think, if I may add, another point was, one of you had pointed out that with the stamped drawings, the firm providing the stamped drawings, the construction estimates are much more refined earlier in the process.
Yes.
And so when we find it or are looking for a funding source for this project, we stand up probably on firmer footing earlier, potentially. I mean, I think it could work the other way too, where you outsource that to another vendor, and that's the first thing they do is provide those drawings, and we're waiting for that. So we're signing a contract with another vendor potentially until we actually know what the construction costs are. So there's another advantage there of, but I do understand your point where you get more people in the mix, and someone does the design, and someone else says, well, design was wrong, right? That wasn't me. Yeah. So I am sensitive to that as well, and definitely looking to those of you with expertise to weigh in here, and because if we decide to go with a different service delivery model, then the obvious choice, I think, is CX, as Richard has pointed out, and I hear Dana saying that he doesn't have a strong preference. So let's, if as a board we have that as a concern, let's address that tonight. So. Back to you, Ashley.
Yeah, just one other thought on that is, and Dana, tell me if you feel differently of this perspective, is I guess two things are coming to my mind. One is that with this building in particular and our current system, it feels like that was a big issue where service folks would come and say the install was not good. Installers would say they built it to the design. Like, it feels like there was a little bit of that kind of bouncing around. I know we were also very late in the game to that, and that warranties had expired and time had passed. So that's just like, to this specific building, I feel like I have a little bit of like, I want to have the continuity. And then just that in my experience in much less complicated residential systems, having somebody who did the design and understands it, who's the whole way through, and then also does the commissioning, just feels like there's such little room for mistakes to happen. So that to me feels super valuable. But if you just feel less passionately about that, I'm curious, yeah.
Well, I think part of the issue, I think, with the town hall system was that we were super early adopters. People were just trying to figure it out. A lot of the mistakes that were made, I don't think the company was familiar with it. And then also the manufacturer of our system, I've heard other stories as well where they're still going around and undercutting prices and delivering a subpar product, but winning basically upon price point. And my understanding is that we're not the only ones struggling with these specific kind of systems from this manufacturer.
And I know that now we are much further along than we were with heat pump systems like this, but I still feel like we're in a phase of like, the industry keeps like changing what is best and what systems are more optimal. So I still feel a little bit of that, like we are still on the bleeding edge a little bit.
There is a bit of a reason for that. So a lot of this stems from something called the Kigali Agreement and the Montreal Protocols. So essentially over time, a lot of the countries in the world all agreed on a refrigerant phase out. So every few years, different refrigerants come off the market and are no longer allowed to be made. So some of the technology and the design of them has to change significantly, especially with some of the more modern refrigerants that, like, for instance, that I have to deal with at my work, where they become more flammable than they used to, which requires all sorts of new ductwork, different trainings for handling the refrigerants. The piping sizes change. What I used to have for a certain footprint no longer works. So every few years, the US is a little farther behind than Europe. I work for a European company, so I'm usually ahead of the game on that one.
Nice.
But to your point, I usually have to go to Europe or other countries to find some of these refrigerants rather than the US, just because it's a constantly changing game.
Tim?
Thanks for all your work on that. It's one of the best breakdown analysis I've seen in a long time, and we do really appreciate that. And some of my messaging here probably belongs once we've chosen someone to really get the message back to them. But I feel very strongly that I've been in property management stuff for about 35 years, and I think I'm on my 4th building where over-engineered solutions are getting ripped out for simpler approaches. And these are pretty large-scale commercial buildings. You know, certainly the pursuit of green, efficient technology is admirable, but there's sort of this trade-off that starts to happen when you get a level of refinement that, you know, gets very finicky and expensive to operate and maintain. So, you know, I feel like the cost to maintain these systems often outweighs the alleged savings in operating costs. In my time in building management, you know, there was always this big theory with setbacks, for example. And in almost every building I've been in, it's proved to not be the case, that if you're operating a large building, maintaining it at a kind of a steady temperature is a better approach actually for the building. So I just think that we should really rethink the heating and cooling in this building with perhaps a simpler design. I'm intrigued even by the idea that the distribution system would be one thing and the whatever is heating and cooling is another, based on your comments about as technology changes, you know, you have this opportunity to change out the motor, but not how stuff's getting distributed. And I just think that, you know, it was probably a mistake in this building not to go with like ductwork that you could, you know, append on a new piece of equipment that would serve the purpose. So I'm hoping that, you know, we get those conversations that say, hey, you know, appreciate your bells and whistles here, but let's kind of like get it back down to like a Ford F-150 instead of, you know, a Maserati kind of thing. And then the other comment I was just going to throw out just in terms of until we get there, you know, we're coming into summer, and I don't know whether this has been explored, but it strikes me that in the spaces that we're struggling with the cooling systems, we should just throw in some temporary commercial cooling units and spend the money and make staff comfortable and make those spaces functional. It's not a lot of money. In my own house, I switched to a LG, what they're called dual inverter units. They're amazing. They're like incredibly efficient, operate beautifully, and cover phenomenal like BTU output for a very low cost. So there are some great options out there, and it just seems like if we stuck some decent units in windows up there or did something for this summer, I think that would be really great to kind of keep the building functional for this summer.
Maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you have been doing?
Well, Tim, can you just tell me again what you just mentioned, that you did what do you have in your house?
I switched to a LG dual inverter. It's still a traditional window air conditioner, but I am blown away by how much more efficient it is. It runs quietly. It produces, you know, great cool air, and I actually tested the wattage, and it represents a wattage usage that's like a third of the use of any other traditional window unit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big challenges that I have is that these are casement windows.
Mm-hmm.
So putting a unit in there. So right now I do have 4 portable,
Like floor units kind
floor
of.
units.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dana. And this is
Okay,
important. This is information beyond the scope of tonight's discussion. I think it is interesting to explore this stuff.
Okay.
And there are limitations, the casement windows and so on. But let's focus on seeing if we can make a decision on this. You know, if we accept the recommendation. And on that note, are there other questions from board members on what we've seen? Thank you, Mary.
I know nothing about any of this, so I'll just be upfront. But I was talking to someone from the town, a resident, who said, is it true that our heat pump that hasn't been working correctly is about 12 years old?
I think 2017, so I think it's less than that.
Okay. Well, this person said, and that's why I asked the question about, is there a range between, I mean, this is the consulting part of it, between what you actually pay once it's constructed and everything. Is that something like 500,000, a million? I don't know what HVAC systems. Are we getting everything for 159,000 if
No.
it's LN? No, see, that's what I thought. So I'm just wondering what the range is beyond that we're looking at.
That's gonna
Does
depend on what
anybody
we
know?
go with. I mean, really.
So process-wise, there's, the construction estimates will be based on the design.
Right.
And so the design has to happen first, and then either the same or a different vendor, the vendor that's doing the
Right.
construction will provide a proposal, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I do
So we
understand
don't
that.
know yet.
Yeah.
I just wondered, because people who may be listening or people who may be talking are saying, might be thinking, okay, we have this money here in reserve, et cetera, for this, but what's it gonna cost in the long term? This person suggested saying, well, I know it's gonna cost a lot. We should go to Vermont Bond Bank. So, and I just thought, geez, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Right.
And I think sometimes that can be why people look at saying, okay, the design build, different design bid build, it is, you've got 10,000 and 28,000 versus 159,000, 179,000. And it's mind-boggling to try and figure that out. And I understand about the stamps and everything. But that's why I was just wondering if even if we knew what range we're looking at.
I'm sorry, to add on to that, like, I think you're making a great point, and that is that, you obviously have soft costs with the project to spec out the project and go put it out to bid, but I think it would be an interesting thing to know that says, like, okay, we're spending, whatever we spend tonight for a $500,000 project or $1 million project. I mean, it seems like we should be able to get our head around the scale of the project that we anticipate and not be afraid of saying that. Like, if it's $1 million, it's $1 million. And then we're spending $100,000 to figure out how we're gonna spend the million or whatever the scale is,
I mean, I've gotten back on the napkin estimates from folks, $4 million, but they've also said it depends on, if you go geothermal, air to air, air to water, if you have a fossil fuel backup, there's so many if-thens that range is just considerable. And I also want to just state this right now because I have been asked to look into the bond bank. John had mentioned some other towns took advantage of that, but their specific green loan that they offer would not be, I don't think we could meet the criteria for that because you have to have a demonstrative amount of savings, energy efficiency savings. And because of our system, you could not put in a system that would model out to make that mark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we're already electric and.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And we're not allowed to count all of the repair and maintenance and other costs that this system has caused us, I take it?
If there was a workaround, a playroom, I'd give it a go.
If you ever want me to get on the phone with someone, Dana.
All right, so
I'm a
the
big fan of run until you get caught, run until you get tackled, but it's not gonna work.
other point to note, I think, is that you were looking for several alternatives,
Correct.
right? Which may provide a range of costs. And so when we see those, that may influence the next steps in the decision going forward in terms of what, and to, just to underscore what Tim said, the simpler systems are, what I hear board members saying they're, would like to see.
Right.
And you understand that because you've been wrestling with this thing for your stint here at Hartford. Any other questions, comments from the board on this? So I don't have a strong sense of where we stand. And so a straw poll in terms of accepting the staff's recommendation to award the contract to LN. Could you give me a sense by raise of hands whether that's the direction we're going here?
Why isn't CX still in the running?
Yeah.
I thought those were the two. When I read through this, I was like, okay, I know who I don't want to hire, but I still felt like we had kind of, shook it out to two considerations effectively.
We effectively have, and now tonight we need to, well, we don't need to, but the ask is to select one. And I think the decision gate, as Richard has pointed out in his memo, is based on the service delivery model. You're either probably going one direction or the other direction. And our task tonight, if we are up for it, is to decide which direction and to accept the recommendation, staff's recommendation of going with LN. Or if we prefer to go with CX, then so be it. Or if we still feel like we need more information, we can table the item until we identify exactly what the information needs are. Please go ahead, John.
Maybe we could hear from Dana and Richard, excuse me. What they view as the reason for the cost differential between CX and LN proposals? Because as I've understood it from my discussions with Dana, it's all about you can pay for a full analysis and recommendation now, or you can deal with it later in the process. And my understanding is that L&N represents get all the important work done with continuity within one organization, whereas CX leaves a lot of work and analysis still to be done later in the process. Can you articulate that better than I did?
Yeah, so essentially what CX is offering is their kind of consultation services throughout the entire project. So they won't actually design the system, they'll provide recommendations, but ultimately you would have to select another mechanical contractor that can also do the engineering design work. So that's why CX's cost is so low, because they do not have those stamp drawings and all the insurance that's associated with that.
Which is gonna need to be paid for at some point, yeah.
In the project.
It's pay now or pay later, it's not.
Yeah, CX is still willing to help out. Yep.
And I think one of them, I think it's CX, needs information by June 30th. One of the,
They had a deadline in the contract.
right, because otherwise then the fee can change.
Yes.
So anyway, that's,
Okay, so our goal is to make, if we're comfortable, to make a decision tonight. If we're not comfortable, then to identify what the outstanding questions are and be specific about that so that we can have staff answer those questions and bring us to a greater comfort level. So I'm straw polling for whether we want to accept staff's recommendation of awarding a contract to LN. Mike?
I would go with Alan, yeah.
Aaron?
yeah, I'll go with them.
Ashley?
I don't feel confident in it. But I trust staff's recommendation, so I guess, yeah.
Am I allowed to add a comment? So I've worked with Ellen in the past for a major project, and they were absolutely amazing. But what I'm really struck by is that in that process, it was both them and an architectural firm, and there was such a strong emphasis on the value of commissioning, because you build these systems, and if you don't make sure they're actually supposed to do what they're supposed to do, then we could end up with this situation. So I'm perplexed by that. I don't know whether if we do indeed choose them tonight, that we could put it that conditional that they add a commissioning component, or that I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that, and it's difficult to make a decision that's $130,000 more without really understanding that value point. Like, is that really going to work for us as a town to spend that much more money?
In the proposal though, Tim, I will say to their credit, they do mention that commissioning your own work's not really a best practice, and that's why they recommend going with going with CX. So I respect that they do not, I mean, we had a conversation sidebar upstairs about these companies had people kind of commission their own work, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, to put it nicely.
Right, and you have given us an estimate of $3,500 because LN doesn't include that commissioning, and so that's your sort of ballpark estimate.
It's a ballpark, but
Yeah, the cost could potentially, again, it depends on the complexity of the system that we end up getting.
Sure.
That was one of the reasons I believe in my memo, I even asked if we could go back to LN and see if they could get a better rough order of magnitude number for us, even just something for us to ballpark against, because again, we can throw out 3,500, but it could be larger depending on what system eventually gets chosen.
So I hear relative comfort to my left, some discomfort to my right. One possible path forward is that the next steps and the questions to proposers that Richard had outlined very clearly, we could ask staff to go back and get answers to those questions. For example, with LN specifically, give us a written quote on the commissioning, not just the overseeing of the commissioning, which is included, but the commissioning itself. And there's several other key questions. So that is, if the board is feeling some discomfort here, because this is a mission critical system we're talking about, and it's one that we do not want to have to do a third time.
No, I don't want to.
In my lifetime, anyway. So if there is discomfort, that's just one course of action. Is we could, Richard sort of teed up some questions for us that we could ask staff to go research. I see some nods of heads.
Would the first question be to CX whether that June 30th deadline means anything?
Well, and bidders can always resubmit, right? We could ask them for an update if an updated proposal, I believe, right? Or we could sort that out as well.
Yeah,
Please, Ashley.
I was just gonna say that in Appendix A with the clarification questions to send to each finalist, I would certainly feel a lot better making a decision if I knew their answers to those questions, because those are excellent questions, and I think some of us asked. So if that's an option, that would be really helpful for me.
Yeah, the other component I just want to add is I had the impression that we were sort of impressed by CX's municipal experience, which I think is relevant. So, you know, and again, I think it would be worth kind of banging on this a little bit more for a couple weeks and getting at a better result than feeling a little, you know.
Question whether we're asking these questions to those two firms or to all four.
We should probably leave that to you to sort of sort out the relevant questions to the relevant firms and not dive that level of detail.
Yeah,
at
I'm
this
just
point
worried
tonight.
about wasting time if we've already discounted two of the proposals.
I think it's a valid point you're bringing, that we should, you know, I don't think it'd be inappropriate to narrow it down to two finalists and refine it more. I think that's an appropriate course of action.
That sounds
Okay with that.
reasonable.
Completely reasonable.
Okay, so our plan would be then to take the CX and LN specific questions, get those to, as well as anything that's relevant in the next steps of Richard's memo, and get responses to the board potentially by the July 7th meeting. And did we say CES had a deadline, a June 30th deadline?
CX, I thought it was.
CX.
Yeah.
CX, okay, and so we need to understand as well the ramifications of if the board can't make a decision until July 7th, what that means for their proposal, right?
Okay, yeah, I can ask them to extend that or have a chat with them.
You can explain to Richard what our needs are for packet generation, so we need some information by, say, July 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Sorry, is there a value to the, I mean, are we at the check references kind of stage? Like, I feel like with finalists, you know, either typically they come in and do a dog and pony, or there's like a little more of a vetting that goes on. So I'm not telling you how to do your work, but if we could kind of just get that sort of shooken out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if we're down to two finalists, I don't have any problems about contacting references and having a conversation.
Excellent.
good.
Great
Okay.
work.
So we have a game plan. Do we need to table this tonight, John?
I don't think so, you're just not taking action
We're
on it.
not taking action. Okay, we have conveyed enough information to you, Dana?
I believe so, yeah.
Great, okay.
We're getting
thank you.
closer.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you both so much, Richard. Thank you for all your work on this. This is really impressive.
Yes, thank you.
And we're not doing WABA next, right?
I don't recall, because we did some moving of the agenda items.
We are ready for the approval of the MOU Fieldhouse agreement, and then
That's gonna be
we'll get on to
Scott Hauser and then
WABA in a
WABA.
moment, Dana.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you,
Yes,
Dana.
thank you both.
Thank you both. We will take this agenda item, and then maybe we'll take a brief break. Can we do this one? This one's gonna go quick, I think. And then we'll take a break, and please forgive us for because then you'll have to wait for us to take a break, so sorry about that. So what we have before us is an item to consider the approval of an MOU for the field house for summer pool operations. It's an agreement between the town and school district to allow pool users to access the bathrooms in the field house. This formalizes what I understand to be the current practice for the last 3 seasons. The agreement covers a single season, and your intent is to review the language after this season and potentially work out language for yearly arrangements that would fit into a longer-term agreement. Thank you for being here, Scott. Do you have anything that you'd like to add that's not included in your memo or in the agreement that or you'd like to highlight for us tonight?
You covered it all. Well done.
All right. Any questions from the board for Scott on this agreement?
Were we waiting on the school district to give us any information about their response to our draft?
So, yes, I've not heard from Katie yet. There was some concern in the agreement related to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th whereas within the agreement.
Which are historical?
Historical
Yeah.
references related to the use of the field house. Over the past few summers, once the new field house was built, there used to be an old locker room structure at the old pool, right? That was converted into pool usage during the summer and then fall sports and other sports, in the off season or non-summer season. So the new field house took on different roles, meaning that there was more school activity during the summertime, which identified different uses. And the school was concerned at one point in time just about crossing general public with school-sponsored programs during non-school time. There's a lot of new folks at the leadership at the school district. They were not aware 100% and did not have any documentation or history that referenced the fact that the field house was actually a shared use facility. And it went back all the way to the shared or the collaborative bond, the school and town bond that helped build Maxfield for high school sports athletics at the town-owned Maxfield Sports Complex. It also, we did some renovation at WABA. It also included some improvements at the pool and this new field house. So they were concerned about the whereas statements. I replied with some updated documentation and just some history and told them that it was our intent to move forward with this version of the agreement. And they will need to take it either to the school board for agreement, however they handled their agreements with the town, whether or not they're required to go to the school board for them to approve and sign it, I'm not quite sure. But that was a recommendation from our attorney that we had both boards review and approve.
The reason I mention it is that there's a possibility that the school might not just accept our historical references and admit that, oh yeah, these clauses make sense. There's a possibility that they might not still be comfortable with them. So the reason I'm saying that is that we're going to be asking you to authorize me to sign off on an MOU. And it's, I guess, possible that the school might ask for some changes along those lines. Maybe simply to remove some of the historical references, but if they're still agreeable with the MOU in large part, maybe that's not a concern not to proceed with an MOU. That's all.
So we might approve this tonight, find out that the school doesn't like the language, and you might be back to us for reconsideration, which is fine, I think.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, that course of action.
I think it's important for us to recognize, and important for the taxpayers as well, because the taxpayers, voted for these improvements, and it was well and designed. I mean, the field house was designed with a fence around it and a ramp that went into the field house from the pool. So clearly identifying that it was to be a shared use type of facility. I'm hopeful that they'll accept them. It's just historical referencing within the agreement that is important for both groups to understand.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that context and that potential, that heads up. Any additional questions from the board at this time? Okay, hearing none, there's a motion on packet page 126. I'll entertain a motion. Ashley,
I move that the Hartford Select Board authorizes the town manager to enter into an agreement with the Hartford School District for usage of the school district's field house during summer pool operations as outlined in the agreement.
I'll second that motion.
we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, it's unanimous, the motion carries, and the agreement is approved from the board, or you're authorized to go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So at this point, unfortunately, apologies to staff, you'll have to wait a little longer. We're going to take a break until 8 o'clock, so about 7 minutes, to refresh ourselves. Thank you. believe we are picking up with the consider purchase policy waiver for the WABA energy efficiency analysis. So we have Scott and Dana here on this topic. I will turn it over to you to introduce for a few minutes, and then we'll let the board ask questions.
Sure, and I just want to clarify, this is a capital improvement analysis, so it goes beyond just the energy use of the building. But the issues with WABA, we've stated this before, I think most of you all been on the tour of WABA. Basically, it was a ice rink that had a chain link fence around it, put a roof over it, and then over the years, they put corrugated plastic around it and called it conditioned, and basically made a greenhouse for the ice rink. So those are the kind of things that Scott and his staff have been dealing with. We've been looking for, I think since I got here, basically, 4.5 years to try to find a solution to these issues with WABA. I put it through the Municipal Energy Resiliency Program 3 years ago or so, which provided this with an ASHRAE Level 2 audit. Unfortunately, I think, I don't know exactly why, but during the audit, they mostly focused on the conditioned part of the building where the locker rooms are, which was kind of a shortcoming. I did complain to Buildings and Grounds Services about that audit, but a number of communities complained about their audit, so it kind of fell on deaf ears. And then about a year later, we connected with a firm called Fryer Architects out of Connecticut that have folks there that specialize in ice rinks. And just to be clear here, ice rinks are kind of very unique beast, right? I mean, for instance, one of the biggest dangers to buildings next to fire is water, because it's freezing in expansion. And when you have an ice rink, that's what you do. You put water in a building and you freeze and you expand it. And with the way that it's set up now, it'll turn into a rainforest at times, deal with condensation falling off the ceiling, running the ice extremely cold to avoid that midday heat. And usually every fall, I'm sitting here, it didn't happen last year, but every other fall I was in here trying to explain why the ice rink's bills go up to about $8,000 a month. At this point, we did have Fryer Architects provide kind of a master plan where they went through and kind of detailed the issues with WABA, which was last fall, and then now they've come to us to propose this capital improvement analysis where they're going to actually start providing schematic level drawings and solutions for dealing with the ice rink. And that's where we're at. Is here to ask that there's a waiver for this next phase, in part because we're kind of far along with this one firm. Well, in part because it's the only firm that we found in a number of years. And I mean, Scott put out things with the ice rink listservs and things of that nature a couple of times. I think the only time we had one person come to do a tour of the building who was basically trying to sell us a new chiller unit. Yeah, the guy was sketchy. So because we have identified this firm, we're already started the process of working with them. We're asking for this waiver to continue working with them so that we don't switch horses midstream. And also, these are the only folks that we found in New England that have those expertise.
Okay, thank you for the summary. Are there questions from the board for either Dana or Scott? Tim?
Probably hitting a third rail here tonight, but I have perhaps a lot of, too much history here with this ice rink, because I go back to the pretty tough and volatile discussions around WABA and investing in WABA. And, obviously I lost, perhaps for the better, in the community, but I kind of feel like I think there's a value to visiting, and maybe this will come on board when we do more of a town-school joint discussion about WABA and about the facilities at large and our needs, and kind of like forecasting and kind of planning a little further out as a community on needs. I mean, I came from the era where Hunter Riesberg, our former town manager, said that we could create 2 sheets up by the UVAC And one was gonna be kind of like a multi-purpose facility, and it was a pretty grand plan. It was a kind of cool plan, but it never came to fruition. And we have invested a lot of money and resources in WABA to date, and have created a decent, respectable ice facility, and I admire that. But I just think that it's really hard when we get to these kind of pivot points where we aren't kind of revisiting those discussions and thinking about it, because strategically for me, you know, when the hockey advocates, which were very strong, both politically and, you know, influential, you know, they said, oh yeah, we're keeping this facility and get out of our way and we're doing this, and that's great, and we did it. But I'm only bringing that up because, you know, ice arenas are ice arenas, as you say, and they have conditions and moisture, and, you know, the building envelope is never designed properly and so on. So, you know, here we are years later where people assured me at that time that the use of the facility, the fees and everything would kind of balance out. We'd create this endowment to support the facility and so on. And some of that isn't reality. We do have a gap between the operating cost and what's going on to run that facility and what we're getting for fees and to make it run and make it work. So I have concerns that we're not, you know, we're making these, you know, decisions along the way to try and make the facility work, but we're not having that broader long-term community discussion about where we really should go as a community. And I'm not saying that we should get rid of WABA. I'm just saying that I think it's worth discussing about if we're suggesting that we want to, you know, do this thing so that we can use it as a multi-purpose, you know, facility, but maybe that's not ideal. Maybe we should just consider it an ice rink, and we should be creating another multi-purpose facility that's specifically designed for that and has adequate parking and has all the things that we would want. So I'm just throwing that out there as a kind of a point of note. I don't think you guys are heading in the wrong direction. I'm just saying, like, every time we spend money and every time we kind of recommit to that facility, maybe we're not making the right turn as a community.
Thank you, Tim. Do either of you wish to respond?
No, I appreciate the comment and the questions, Tim. The facility itself, you know, with climate change, for one, we've seen, you know, kind of a drastic change in our fall operations and sometimes into the spring, and a lot of it has to do with that main envelope. As you might recall, the actual shell of the ice operation, right? They kind of peeled the roof off and put another roof on, a little bit of insulation, made the front look really nice and left the back as is. So it's really, you know, a barn structure at that part of the ice section, right? What makes us the money. We have a new refrigeration system, we have a new floor, you know, dashboards, all the above. You know, what we're trying to do now is make sure that we can, you know, protect the asset for one, but then also recognize that we're throwing money away when we're trying to operate that facility even during the ice season. Mainly because the building is not tight, right? It's not insulated like it should. So and the air exchange is not helpful to us when we're trying to make ice. You've got to, you know, there's a science related to air within that building in order to keep it as efficient as possible. So we're not able to do that. You know, we were smart when we did the work there. We've got a warm floor in place, meaning that the piping is in place. So if the facility becomes a year-round ice operation, we'd be able to do that. Where if you didn't put that warm floor in, you wouldn't be, you know, be ripping it up and starting all over. So I think the complex itself has had a lot of improvements over the years. We've invested a lot, you know, through the bond. There's been other times where we put money into it, a collaborative with the school and the town to try to make some of those improvements. The facility does get used a considerable amount of time, and we could capitalize off a lot of that too, I think, if we were able to manage the air quality inside the building during non-ice seasons, that type of thing. So, but I do appreciate that comment and question related to, should we be in the ice business? Should we be into different types of the arena business? But it certainly is a valuable asset that's probably not going to go away, and we need to make it as efficient operation as possible. And I think since Dane has been here, we've been able to have those internal conversations and be able to try to plan and do the things we probably should have done a long time ago to put everything into place so we have a facility that'll be around for considerably long time and we'll be able to handle that air quality that's very important to the dollar and the bottom line of how we operate.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. And I meant to, when I introduced this item, note that the scope of the discussion really is about approving a waiver, purchasing policy waiver. But I also meant to note that I have similar sentiments, Tim, and I wanted to invite the board to expand the scope of the discussion, because I think we are at a critical point where we continue to invest, but at what point do you step back and say, all right, are we headed in the right direction here? What do we want to do with this facility? And so I appreciate you preempting that with sort of broadening the discussion. With that, I'll turn it over to the rest of the board. Are there other questions or comments? Ashley?
Sure, yeah, and Tim, I appreciate your thoughtfulness on that, and it's, I think, a question we should be asking ourselves with like every facility and topic is, what's the history and what's the long term? And from my perspective, I think of WABA as an incredibly valuable asset, both to the school and to the town. As a parent with coming into teenage year kids, I love that my kid just wants to go to the ice rink in the winter, and I know that she's in a safe place that's supervised and is doing stuff that kids should be doing. And we don't have roller skating rinks around here or bowling alleys or one movie theater, I guess. But there's just not a lot of things for kids and adults to do recreationally that's affordable. And so not only does WABA have the ice rink use in the winter months, but I'm also seeing events for roller derby happening there this summer. I know the Ventures Camp program, which is, again, from a perspective of a parent in Hartford, is one of the only affordable day camps that you can, if you're lucky enough to get in on the day registration opens, can send your kids to for the summer. I know it's, I think, still a pretty critical facility for that program. Scott, is that correct? And yeah, I think that the energy improvements and potentially design improvements would only broaden those additional uses and potential. One question I did have is I didn't see solar in the scope, and I know that there have been discussions about putting solar on the roof of the facility. So yeah, is that part of the conversation?
Yeah, I don't know, I think I responded to Eric's email, I don't know if that went to all the board. That if you look under the one part where they talk about energy generation, they do mention something about doing a structural analysis, including additional energy generation or energy, something like that. And based upon our verbal discussions, those were specifically about solar. But that also needs to include, because, this is kind of a side note, but because Hartford is above their cap on the allowable amount of solar that an entity can have, any additional solar put on WABA would need to be behind the meter, meaning that it would need to be used on the premises and would not be allowed to go on the grid. So we need to include battery storage as well, is the additional part of that conversation, which we have had with them.
I'm going to weigh in there. I had the same question, which I emailed, and I asked the question because the proposal does not mention solar or generation. It talks about structural analysis of the roof to accommodate energy measures, which I assumed meant additional insulation or the weight of structure to support that insulation. It explicitly does not say anything about solar or generation on the roof, and that I think is a deficiency. And as such, I think it's an omission. The other thing I would point out is that the town can also lease space, right, to someone else that runs that runs a net metering operation, right? So the town doesn't have to, the net metering cap that the town is under doesn't necessarily affect.
Yeah, meaning like what we do at the public safety building, where we have a solar array there, but it goes to one of the local nonprofits.
Right, so it's just about using the asset, using the roof space for solar generation, not about like the net metering sort of logistics or the, that part of the arrangement, which I understand that we do, we're above the cap, we're grandfathered in, right? So, yeah, that is an omission from the proposal.
Yeah, so I'm almost certain we're heading that direction for the solar, because the primary purpose of them to do the engineering analysis on the roof dates back to when there was going to be an opportunity to put solar on the building, and the firm that was working with the town at the time related to some of these arrays decided not to invest in the structure to make those improvements to put solar on. So we specifically asked them to analyze the roof structure, so we knew that we could put solar panels on the WABA roof. So we'll connect with them and communicate that with them for certain. The one reason why they were not willing to do the investment, and I believe it might have been Norwich Solar, I can't recall, but
Before my time, but yeah.
was primarily due to the 100-year snowfall that would dump, I don't know how many feet of potential snow on the roof structure. And because of that, it needed to be updated and upgraded to a stronger, stable roof system. So we asked them to do the work, so we knew what it was going to cost to actually do that improvement, so we could do the solar panels on the roof.
Thank you. The proposal is explicit in saying that structural engineering is not included as well. So that's in the list of exclusions, that's identified. So that was the other sort of flag for me that, hey, wait, are we potentially missing something here? So thank you for that question, Ashley. Are there other questions or comments? Mike?
I think I'm good. Yeah, I think that's some good discussion. That's some great ideas from the other board members.
Okay. We'll go with John first and then Tim.
I mean, look, my question would be for both Dana and Scott would be, is there funding to do this work? That seems to be yes. And B, by doing this further analysis, it in no way obliges us to accept any of the recommendations on future improvements, right?
Correct. But it'll also give us a plan. The way they're gonna lay it out is kind of in this a la carte fashion where we don't have to do all the work at one time. We'll be able to look at their suggestions. It'll be broken out, what's the biggest bang for our buck? What do we go for first? If we don't want to do this project all at once, we'll have a way to phase it in as well.
Thank you. Right. Go ahead, Tim.
So the only other thing that this has brought to mind for me, just as a kind of a broader realm, is it's kind of an awkward arrangement, right? Because what we determined after the last kind of the WABA round was that, it's a town-owned building on school land, and then obviously different parties clearly benefit from it. That's not questioned. But the challenge I have is sort of parsing that out a little bit in the sense of like who benefits, who pays, right? So at the end of the day, like the school benefits by having that facility there. Obviously, they got great hockey programs and kids get to use it and so on. So that's awesome. Like I'm not, trying to negate that, but from a fiscal policy or fiscal management standpoint, it's kind of a mess because it's like the town is spending this study to look at the locker rooms and the facility and the air, whatever we're doing. But it's kind of like, wait a minute, like there was originally supposed to be kind of this quasi-private foundation hockey group, then there was going to be the school, then there was going to be the town, and somehow those were all going to come together and make this thing work. And I feel like the town, solely shouldn't have to step up on this one, right? It should be sort of a shared thing of like these entities are getting together and saying, yes, we need a study collectively to keep this facility going. And I appreciate your efforts and your spirit around that, but I'm just saying that I think it should be a shared collaborative effort that's very clear, and it's also clear in terms of financial commitment. Because right now, we're kind of like in this funny space, you know, and that's my feeling on that, so.
Yeah, no, that's good points, and one thing to keep in mind too is, you know, when this all started back up, you know, the facility used to be an enterprise fund, right? So the monies went in for, based on the revenues went in for the operation, right? And that was your revenue for that particular operation of the ice season, right? So since then, it's gone to the general fund. And I can't remember how long that has been. There is still a hockey organization or a Friends of WABA organization. They raise, you know, a good significant amount of money on a regular basis, and they are committed to doing some of the improvements necessary on the east end of the building, which will be outlined through some of this work, actually funding the actual construction of some of the improvements and some of the, you know, the heating and cooling on that side of the building. So those relationships are there. There is, it is kind of challenging when we start talking about school funding, town funding, you know, the operation itself. We have a great relationship where we're in all the elementary schools and the schools, high school, middle school on a regular basis, running various programs based on times that we can use the facilities at no charge. And the same agreement is with the operation of the rink, meaning physical education classes during the winter months, use of the ice hockey team, practicing in games. There's no exchange revenue for that. So it's kind of that type of balance when it comes to how we operate. But it is kind of clunky, but it seems to work. It's our intent to make the ice season pay for itself as best we can. And you know, sometimes we get there, sometimes we don't. But that's one of our goals.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? Okay, hearing none, I will add my comments into the conversation. I have similar concerns to what Tim has expressed. You know, I think what would make me more comfortable with this is if we had some rough order of magnitude numbers, and that's a question that I had asked Dana. And the response was, you know, this analysis will provide that. But generally, you don't need schematic level drawings to get rough order of magnitude estimates. I'm trying to understand, are we talking about investing 100,000, 200,000, 700,000? You know, and I appreciate that the proposal would be a la carte and allow the town to choose different options or to phase, you know, potentially phase an implementation. But that also raises, you know, that goes back to the sort of the broader point that Tim was making about, well, I don't put words in his mouth, but I would call it the sunk cost fallacy, where you continue to invest in something and then you continue to invest in it because you have already. Like, you know, I've got an aging truck and I put $500 into the brakes and now I'm like, oh, you know, I just put that 500 in, so I better put another 1,000 into the next thing that fails and so on and so forth. And at some point you have to go, okay, hang on, what are we doing? And the hang on, what are we doing is coming up in about 3 weeks, I think, which is capital improvement project prioritization. And so it's sort of, this lands at an interesting time because I'm asking, like, where does this fit into the broader town priorities? I certainly appreciate, first of all, I really appreciate that it's an important part of the Parks and Rec department, and that Parks and Rec has a mission and is very mission focused and exudes excellence in carrying out that mission. And I also appreciate that this is a facility that the town and people like Ashley's children, that she spoke of earlier, that use this. But that doesn't mean that, I mean, let's put it this way, there aren't that many towns in Vermont that have municipal arenas. There are a number of towns where there are nonprofit arenas or whatever, different arrangements. So there's a number of questions that I have that lend to my sort of hesitation to vote in favor of this tonight. It doesn't mean, first of all, it makes sense if you're going to operate it efficiently. Like, that's a no-brainer to me, so I appreciate that. The question is, what are we really, it's sort of a bigger picture question, and which is why I was having some discomfort with this agenda item, because it zeroes us in on a very focused thing, where we don't necessarily allow ourselves to explore how this fits into capital, park and recs, relationships, with the school district, and whether this would be continued funded under the general fund. Those are some of the questions that I have. So I just wanted to put that out there for the board. I, at this time, will not vote in favor of the waiver. That doesn't mean that I don't understand what you're trying to do, and I do. I just haven't gotten to the comfort level where that I understand that this in the broader picture of capital improvements and other projects for the town.
Totally appreciate that, yeah. If I might add, just one concern, how we kind of have managed this project and other projects. And one thing I would really caution on is not allowing the opportunity to get those professional estimates and design type of work. I think we can all say, Tim, you and we just had that conversation earlier about the track, right? You know, with that joint bond, there were some of that, I believe, that took place. Well, we believe it might cost this, or what we understand it could cost this. Then, you know, everything went out to bid, and next thing you know, you're under budget. So I caution those types of conversations on the fact that it's always important to do the best you can to get that finite number based on what you believe will be the best design for that building. So we don't get to a point where we need to go out to bid, and we do go out to bid and then come back and find out we're $500,000 over budget already, and we don't have the money to do the work. So I think that's why we're doing it these steps in order to keep that from actually happening, especially with this type of facility and kind of the uncertainty. Well, we know what we need for heating and cooling within the building, but we also really don't know the final cost until we get that building tightened up and understand whether or not we have to do a foundation in the back of the building, or whether or not there's other methods to put in an insulated wall structure or some type of fabric of some sort to do the same thing. So there's a lot of unknowns that if we put a number to it, I'd be afraid to say that it might not be the right number when it comes down to making a tough decision at that point. So
understandable. If we don't act on this tonight, what does that do to overall project schedule? Are there any hard constraints that you run into? And secondly, is it possible to provide a range of information, of cost estimates, construction cost estimates, understanding what you just said, which is completely true, like when we get down to it, but in order to inform the CIP process, right? Because at some point, this board is going to be sitting with a list of projects, and we're going to have to decide what the town's going to spend its money on. And those aren't going to be easy decisions. And if we sort of understand, like, you know, here's a sort of a ballpark of what we might be talking about for the arena, before we invest the 56,000 or whatever in that analysis, it might be helpful.
yeah. So what I can say to you is the WABA reserve is part of our CIP submissions, right? So you know, we want to continue that reserve account in order to provide, you know, funding for those future expenses. So that's there. We do not have the final, you know, an estimated number of what this might be for the CIP. With that being said, we're working on a CIP for the next 5 years. So as I don't anticipate, you know, this being a project the town will probably take on in the next 5 years. I mean, unless we have private, public partnerships, you know, in order to do the project, which would be a main focus of trying to complete it. If it's a $2 million project, you know, we would look at, you know, foundations, grants, the organization, that supports hockey in the community and things like that to help soften the total dollar amount. So we're looking at this as a continuation in the CIP discussion. It'll be the continuation of the reserve account in an attempt to get the final numbers for us. So hopefully in year 6, year 7, as we continue to, work on the next 5 years or however the town decides to, update the CIP, it'll be part of those discussions. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay.
We got to
Thank you.
get that information now so we have the good numbers in place so we can be real about what we're trying to do here. And the town can make a decision at that time. Do we want to invest in it or do we not want to invest in it? So that's how
In an environment where the construction costs weren't escalating the way they are, I would feel much more comfortable with what you just laid out, but I
Yeah.
do appreciate the logic. Tim?
Well, you touched on a point that for me is a little troubling, and that is to say that if your intent or expectation is that this is 5 years out, and making that number. Doing a study now, it kind of weakens the argument because you're far enough away from it that you would do a study and then a lot can happen in 5 years. And the other point that I wanted to make around this that I think we need to be better about as a community is that there's a school up there, and there's a school up there that has I would argue, a pretty decrepit facility that needs significant capital investment. They have, as we know, the PCB problem. It's a very old a series of buildings. We've, as a community, we've shoehorned in a lot of stuff up there, if you will. And I just think that we are making a mistake by not having broader discussions with the school and the town, thinking about, hey, where do you guys really think you are with the high school, the tech center? We got the pool, we got the middle, there's a lot going on up there. And in terms of like the parking and the space and the land and so on. So it just seems to me that, it's yet again something where I liked your analogy earlier, like you got this kind of older car, geez, do I put more money into studying it or adding, I don't know. The timing feels a little awkward for me for this. So.
Anything else from the board? Okay, what is, Ashley?
I guess, yeah, just as a follow-up to that, I'm curious, Scott, about your thoughts on the point that's brought up about engaging with the school on, those improvements to the building and potentially broader campus-wide improvements that might be in the pipeline.
Yeah, so I mean, I can say that we communicate with school on a regular basis related to the programmatic piece to the building, right? I think when it comes to the infrastructure, the buildings on campus, the school's pretty well, these are my buildings, that's your building. So that's kind of the mentality when it comes to probably what it's going to take to get them to maybe invest in the building or invest in those particular improvements. They might take that look. But if it's a programmatic piece, new scoreboard, bleachers for more people to participate on, a better ice surface, things of that nature, they've been willing to support and they continue to do so. But I can't guarantee that we could go to them when the time comes that if it's a $2 million project, will the school, kick in $1 million? I mean, it's all coming from the same pocket, I guess. It's really just a matter of determining whether or not the community wants it or not. So the support of it. So
Yeah, and I guess just to that point, I was kind of thinking that, Tim, as you were talking about the school versus town piece is, I know there are different ways that the education tax is calculated and figured and that the state is involved. So I'm sure it's not like an apples to apples comparison, but theoretically, I mean, it's coming from the same taxpayer pockets. So for me, that's not a huge, I think it's an interesting idea, and you're right, there's like an overlap there that maybe we should explore further, but yeah, I guess that's not a big holdup for me.
Okay. Well, this feels, sorry. Go
I'm
ahead,
just
Mary.
going to say quickly, I don't want to get into the weeds anymore. I support the project. It seems like every group of people that I've been around, has said so much about all these opportunities for their kids, not just Ashley, but lots and lots of people. I just think we have to start somewhere with looking at it and seeing what's the possibility. And I think a lot of times we do make those decisions without necessarily knowing, and this is how we gather information. So I'm gonna support this if we make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Anything else? Okay, so this feels like we haven't really, we're not that settled, but I will entertain a motion if there is one.
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
I move that the Hartford Select Board waive the requirement for multiple bids for ice rink consultants and authorize the town manager to sign the proposal from Fryer Architects for creating a capital improvement analysis for a cost of $56,700.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ashley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in, oh, go ahead.
Friendly amendment, with solar in the scope. If like, that feels important to me, that is included in the study.
Okay, so we
I
have
accept that.
with solar in the scope of the project as the amendment to the motion. Very well, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in, let me do a roll call on this one. So I'll start with Mike.
Aye.
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 I'm gonna vote nay. Tim?
Nay.
Ashley?
Aye.
So 3 in favor, 2 opposed, the motion fails, and I apologize.
No, the motion passes.
Motion passes.
Passes, 3-2,
3-2.
unless there's some other
It's
way
a
1,
of
2,
voting.
3.
3.
Right, I understand it's 3, but you need a vote of 4, I believe, to have an affirmative.
That is a reference to the charter we would have to make. A charter has been amended to say that as few as 3 are sufficient to carry the vote when there's not a full board in place. That's my understanding of the charter. I can follow up with a confirmation email to everybody, but that's how I've understood it.
I think that's correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm perhaps the hour's late and I'm drawing a blank, but, or I'm confused, but, so there were 3 in favor, 2 opposed. Given that understanding, the motion carries. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good
I
luck.
will follow up with everybody involved.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, that moves us on to considering the approval of the communications policy and the social media policy that we visited during the last meeting. We have one memo that covers both agenda items for both policy amendments. We'll handle them singly in order as it's as they appear on the agenda, the communications policy, then the social media policy. So the board reviewed the draft communications policy presented on June 9th and approved posting it for employee review with one change to the section about the Hartford newsletter. The proposed policy amendment has been posted for employee review for the required 10-year, 10-day period.
If it's 10 years. JD's gonna be doing
And
this.
it's our understanding that staff will receive copies of the updated general personnel policy upon, if and when the board approves the amendment for the communications policy. Does that pretty much cover it, JD? Do you have anything that's not in your memo that you'd like to highlight for us?
Yeah, that covers it. Since I had to, obviously submit this last week, I have heard only one comment from staff, and that they like that it's all written down and formalized. So throughout the 10 days, no pushback from it. Essentially posted. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the board? Questions or comments on the updated or the proposed amendments for the communications policy? Ashley?
I was just gonna say, I like your amended update. That works great for me.
Very good. So there is a draft motion language on packet page 250. I will entertain a motion if there is one.
You got it?
Ashley?
You rock.
I move that the select board adopt the social media and communication policies as
We're gonna do the communications one first, and then we'll come back to that one.
Yes,
Sorry, they're in
you're
the
right.
wrong order there.
Well, then I move that the select board adopt the communications policy as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Motion a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are any opposed? Any abstentions? No, motion carries definitively this time. Without the confusion of the vice chair. All right, so that moves us on to the, considering the approval of the proposed social media policy. So the board reviewed the draft language presented during the June 9th meeting, and it was posted for employee review and feedback. And again, staff will receive copies of this updated, or this social media policy and the updated personnel policy if and when the board approves the amendment. Any additional information that you want to add, JD, or comments about the feedback that you received on the social media policy?
I lumped it all together. I kind of was going about this, both at the same time, so same thing, one
Excellent.
comment.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I just have a brief question, and this is probably a longer term one, but I don't know when we would have the opportunity to discuss the town's engagement in different social media platforms. I could anticipate at some point in the future that our engagement or choices around that might change. We may decide, okay, we no longer want to engage on Facebook, or, I'm just using that as an example. So I just think it's an interesting point that we're going to continue to see changes in how we communicate out to our community, and maybe we should be visiting that annually and kind of thinking about it in a way that it's dynamic, because I think the world's going to continue to change in that. And I don't want to, I personally don't engage in certain platforms because they become very toxic and unproductive. So I think it's worth the town kind of visiting that on occasion.
Thank you, Tim. And there are several social media platforms expressly documented in the policy. And I guess this is a good check-in point as to whether the board is comfortable with the town using those. X, Facebook, JD, help me out, there are a few other ones.
Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube.
So if there is discomfort, I think this is the time. In fact, June 9th would have been the time, but I don't think it's too late now to explore that before we approve amending the personnel policy for this. John?
I would just point out that I have had this discussion with JD, he can speak for himself, of course. And it's my understanding that rather than utilize preferred platforms or ones whose mission we might most sympathize with or agree with, it may be more important, if our purpose is to communicate, to actually use social media platforms where we're likely to get maximum messaging out to the people, not to, again, pick and choose which billionaire we may like or dislike, but maybe JD could speak to that.
Yeah, I think we have to meet our audience where they are. Facebook is not my preference on social media, but that is where our constituents are, our residents are, so that's what I use, I would love for everybody just to go to the website. That would be the perfect world. That is so much more controlled. It's it's all under our umbrella. However, that's not how the world works. I think we would miss a large swath of our audience if we did not post externally. So it's a valid point. I think that whether or not social media is always good is obviously a broader topic. I unfortunately we got to use the free tools that we need to utilize to disseminate our messaging, and I think that it is important. And since I've been here, we definitely have more engagement. People have told me that they feel more informed, and I think that that's just the way it is with using social media. So,
Ashley?
Yeah, I'll say that I totally agree that we have to meet our audience where they're at. And I do think that we can balance that with our ethics and, kind of like mission. And so I guess if we're picking our least favorite billionaires, I'm curious how much activity or engagement we actually get on X, formerly known as Twitter. Like, I don't know.
It's very not very much.
I'd love to get rid of that. I mean,
Yeah.
and I would also assume it takes
Can I-
up some amount of your time to post to platforms
Yes.
that we both are not getting, we're not really meeting our audience there. It's very little engagement, and it is, in my personal opinion, not a great ethical choice.
So, can I comment on the audience that is there?
Yes, please.
Journalists use X, formerly Twitter. You know, when I was in the news business, that's what you're checking in on. So it's not the biggest audience, but it is an audience. You know, when I worked for the news, I would check in. I'm guessing that it was Paula who was posting then. You know, and I'd see stuff on there that gets buried in the Twitter or in the Facebook algorithm. I don't know. I think it becomes very complicated to start picking and choosing when we already have the precedent.
So what I hear you saying is there's not only an audience count, but there's an audience effectiveness. Even though you're reaching a smaller number of people, these are people that you want to then broadcast the message further or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Not that I want to make your case for you, but I think that's what I hear you saying. I'm going to go to you, Tim, in a minute, but did Mike, you have anything? Sounded like you wanted to weigh in there.
No, I mean, I'd be really curious to see how much X is used and if it's dropped off at all. I mean, I feel like it's dropped off even in like the journalism sphere a lot in the last few years too. I don't know if it's like worth it to switch to Threads. No, I don't use Threads. I mean, I don't know if it's popular enough to switch. All social media has its ins and outs and terrible places you can visit, but I do feel fairly strongly that X is like kind of an unregulated cesspool.
Yeah, I'm not gonna stick my neck out for any of these platforms.
Yeah,
Change
totally
their policies on a whim. So I'm just saying that that's what we've done, and that's kind of I feel that with we need to meet people where they're at, and I don't think that I want to be the one arguing for one particular platform essentially.
Okay. Tim, back to you, and then we will figure out how to sort of.
So I apologize being the point of origin on this discussion, because that was never my intention to suggest that we become like an editorial board on that or judge one or the other. It was more just a discussion around utilization, and at the end of the day, as you say, like some platform might kind of phase out or people don't touch it, and that we would transition to something that's more effective to get the message out. So I respect your judgment on that. It's more just a matter of like, looking at that and thinking about it, not so much like challenging who owns it and what's happening on that platform kind of thing. So
that's a good way to wrap this up, I think. Oh, sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a real quick, is there any possibility, given what the board's feelings, of just, once that's in the policy, as that, which platforms that we use, say this is not an endorsement of any of them, but we recognize that the public has a way, it has to communicate. Is there anything you can do?
Maybe the policy doesn't even have to list the platforms that it uses. Maybe again, in deference to the communications officer's best judgment. I mean, I see that it's a statement of what we currently use, but currently is always subject to change based on.
Perhaps that addresses Tim's point as well, which is we leave it to staff to make the decisions, but we hope that they review them periodically, and so then by pulling it out of the personnel policy, the explicit enumeration of those platforms, pulling that out of the policy lends itself to a more regular and flexible review of which platforms the town chooses to use. And so if we decided to do that, which, frankly, we should have, ideally we would have this discussion on the 9th, and so forgive us. But if we decided to do that, I assume you'd have to repost for another 10-day period, because now it's a different amendment to the policy.
I would assume so.
Okay.
And again, as you've said before, there's no particular urgency to it. We just think this is a best practice to have a written policy.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, and if I can, to that point, I think even though it will be, we'll have to wait again for staff approval or acceptance, now you won't have to update that policy every time you change which platforms you.
Yeah, that's
Well, it is, I did leave it broad. I said that the definition that it's included and not limited to, like, you know, the specific platforms, and that we currently use this, and that it's not, the platforms, we can be added. Not to say that they can't be subtracted also, but it's, you know, up to, you know, shall be maintained by the town manager's office or their designee, so maintained.
I think when you use the verbiage include, the expectation is that the ones that are listed are included, and that's the point, that's the rub. Right?
So if we lost detailed procedure number 6 altogether, would that pose a problem for you?
No.
less is, isn't it less is more?
Oh, yeah, because
What path is better here? Should we modify it and wait, or should we try and extract that language and move it tonight?
Maybe I would replace it with the CMS shall use best efforts to identify the most effective social media networks, with those being revisited on a periodic basis.
Pretty good
That
language.
sounds reasonable to me. How does the board feel about that language that John just articulated?
I like it.
We got a cringe from one board member.
I don't know, now I'm getting cold feet the further we go into the rabbit hole. Because I do, like, for continuity, like, you know, assuming JD is not always our communication specialist, of course, he can, hopefully is in a position to train his replacement when he retires in 48 years. But if he's not, for whatever reason, where is that data then, like, stored? I guess there is, I don't know, JD, is there a value to having a really clear list of what we're posting on in this policy? Or do you also have a separate list somewhere that, like, this isn't like your handoff document if you move to
No,
Hawaii
I
tomorrow?
have a document, you know, listing this is all on the town website. You know, it's.
My experience in these situations, you do one of two things. You either strip it out, or you kind of almost put it as like an appendix that could be modified.
Right.
Otherwise, you end up, if it is indeed embedded in there, you get kind of locked in a little bit.
Yeah.
So whenever, you know, those would be the two strategies, and I would suggest that we strip it out, make it lighter and easier, more nimble, and then approve it and.
Appendix A with the CMS having the authority to periodically review it and modify it.
Yes, I think that's it. I find that approach agreeable. I think that it doesn't even have to be in appendices, though. It could just reference another document that lives outside of the policy potentially, and you'll have to research whether that's allowable. That you reference a document in the policy that then you can modify annually, or with some other process that doesn't require this approval process, right? So that's the thing that I think needs to be explored is can you get away with that?
When you're amending the personnel policy, it does require select board action after a posting. So I think the safe course would be to adopt a document like the one proposed, maybe without the listing. There's no need, I don't think, to reference another list. I think it's understood that part of JD's job description is to identify the best ways to communicate the town's message.
So that would be the language that you just described.
So straw poll on John's stripping out the specifics and using the language that John proposed. Good, Mike?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Good, okay, so that's what we want to do. Sorry to send you back, you're coming back in a while, but, and having to repost this.
And I know I owe 20 minutes of your life's back. At some point, I'll have to figure out how to do it.
Always doing that.
Because I was the one that opened up the can of worms.
That's okay, I think it needed to be open, and so we're all good. So thank you, JD.
Thanks,
So
Gina.
we got the first one accomplished.
We did.
So we made progress.
Right. Very well, that moves us on out of the action items finally into the discussion items. And so now we are expecting an update from the Finance Director, Eliza Brunn, who's been patiently waiting for a considerable amount of time. Thank you for staying with us.
I did
We'll
wonder
give you
she
the
was
mic and the
late in the
floor.
agenda.
Thanks, JD.
Thank you.
Right. So we have about 20 minutes for this agenda item. I think we're running a little behind schedule, not atypical for us. We'll let you maybe do an update in about 10 minutes, and then we'll turn it over to the board for some questions. So thanks for being here. And I don't know, has everyone met Eliza, right?
Yes,
Haven't met you, but now we do.
thank you so much, and it's nice to be here. So it's my third month. I came on board March 30th, and finance was understaffed. It still is, but we have one finance specialist that came in last week, and we have another finance specialist which will be starting July 21st. So that will give the finance department 4 staffs, which is going to be helpful because we're working on the backlog at the moment. And there are lots to do. And I'm not sure if you have seen the list here. I tried to make it just one page because the more I get into the weeds, I said it's not going to be, sometimes the wordings are not easy to understand, especially for non-finance. I'm sure you know a lot more than I do, but I tried to make it really brief so we could start from where would you like to start for me to answer some questions from you. But what I could say right now is we're continuing on having the progress of updating our books. I could easily print the statements, but I am not comfortable showing that to the select board or even to the other directors because we are so far behind that it would not make sense for me to present it and then here comes September, a huge gap, so.
Okay, very good. I'm going to kick us off with just a few broad questions. I understand that the town was getting some consulting help, and I wondered if that's still continuing. Second question is, I know that the auditor has identified for us sort of a deadline when certain things need to be caught up so that all of the next steps that lead up to the audit report, which is important in the town report, which is produced in January, happen. So I want to just check in on that. And lastly, we know, in your memo, you mentioned the glide path report, and I just wanted to get a sense of, if you were comfortable telling us tonight when we might see a glide path report upcoming. So sort of 3 questions to sort of prime the pump here.
So first for the consulting, we have the former finance specialist helping us out. It's supposed to be up to 15 hours a week. Unfortunately, with the air condition, the standalone air condition, we have some power outage every time it goes so warm outside. We lose the power, and then if I did not remember to reboot a computer where she could connect remotely, she won't be able to put that 2 hours in the evening. And it happens several times, especially at the finance department. So is she continuing to do some work for us? Yes, she's doing that. For the last pay period, we only have 5 hours and 75 that she was able to work for us or to help us out because she couldn't log on remotely because of the power outage. I actually came here, but then my ID did not work, and I think it's because of the power outage as well, so I couldn't get into reboot the computer. I was at the second floor working. And I thought did not make sense, but then Saturday I did reboot the computer, so she got the chance to put more hours in. To make that short, the 15 hours is not met because it's either there's a power outage, could not get remotely. But she's doing her best to finish the papers that she brought.
Okay.
And she's gonna be continuing. The other question is for the auditors. So she will be here. She will be here back in October. It's the 3rd week of October up to 1st week of November. Meanwhile, before she gets here, she wanted to make sure that we have all the finance records updated and uploaded to the portal that she shared with us by September. So she could maybe look into it, and if she has some questions before she gets here, that we could provide some updates or answers to her.
And are we on track with meeting that?
So far we are, and the hope that by July 21st, we will have another person to come on board.
Okay.
I'm hoping that we could get there. It's just really a lot of backlog, and it's just too much, from the bank reconciliation to the entries to the fixed assets, all the records that are no proper turnover is quite hard.
Right.
To
Understandable. Before, apologize to interrupt you, but before I lose this thought, we seem to have some operational issues here. And it seems like the computer that the external consultant is using is probably considered mission critical at this point. Should we, is it advisable for staff to reach out to IT and say, like, we need a battery backup on this, or some other mechanism to make sure that this individual can do the work that they are?
We certainly want to facilitate it. This is the first I'm hearing of the computer issue. But if we can in any way help get that connectivity, that's certainly desired. My understanding was that this consultant was also having difficulty finding time because she works a full-time job and has young children. So maybe both are playing a role in her limited work, but certainly whatever we can do from an IT perspective, we will. Yeah.
Great.
And I have a follow-up with that. I actually talked to our IT director, Dylan, see if the computer that she has could be a standalone and get connected to the server versus connecting to a particular computer that she used when she was here.
Mm-hmm.
And that would eliminate some problems.
Right. Yeah, that's good thinking. Better thinking than mine, actually.
Yes.
So, and then the glide path.
And then the glide path.
Right.
Unless we could complete what the auditors are asking, complete our month ends. So far, there's no month that was closed. So we're starting like July, August, September, while I'm doing the bank reconciliation, making sure that everything that went to the bank, everything that is collected is actually linked to our financial statements. I think the main goal right now is to make sure that we could complete those financial statements. Once we're ready for the auditors, I would say the glide path is next to that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for persevering and not running for the door.
Definitely was a challenging time when we were really essentially down to finance and payroll. Accounts payable and payroll. Thank God for flow, keeping the train on the tracks. And we did resort to an interim director who was mostly remote. So between the two of them, they did keep trains on tracks, but so much of the day-to-day work of the finance department was deferred, and Lisa's doing a great job catching up to speed, instructing herself in many ways, and moving the ball forward and trying to provide myself and the board with good, reliable data, which I think is going to be forthcoming. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Turn it over to the board for questions. Mike, anything from you? Okay. Tim?
The only comment that might make you feel better about tonight is that my experience with boards receiving financial reports, which is perfectly fine, but honestly, like, I haven't seen a lot of that lately, and that's totally fine. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, as you know, like, expenses and revenues are weird in towns, right? Like, there's like these weird seasons, like when stuff comes in and when it goes out, and we have like capital. I mean, I'm not saying like it's not explainable, but I'm saying it's very difficult as a board when you get a report, say in September, but what is it really reflecting? And then we know in October we need to buy salt, or like, so there's all these factors that, to me, the value in that, I think is somewhat diminished, unless somehow you're able to do budget actuals from the previous year, and you would expect a similar cycle in terms of like, and obviously like back when we had ARPA as an example, that would have totally thrown off a budget report, because you'd have like this weird kind of revenue that shows up once and so on. So I just want to, if we're going to pursue that route of perhaps a quarterly report back to the board, I think it should be distilled down, or the expectation should be low in terms of like what it's kind of insight it's going to provide, or so on. I mean, unless we see some major deviation off budget that would trigger a discussion, I don't see a huge value into trying to like track these undulations through a particular fiscal cycle. But that's just my comment on it.
It's a good point, and I think included in what the former finance director used to provide was an explanation of where there are variances or whatever. Like, hey, we're expecting, this is low, or this is high, and here's what we're expecting, here's why.
Right.
And so you get I think a little contextual information is also part of the equation, so.
That's true.
Other questions from board members? Nothing from this side, nothing from this side. Okay, we might be letting you off pretty easy tonight. But it's your first time.
Which will be a first in her time here.
We will.
That board is easy.
We will be seeing a lot of you, I think, in November and December.
During the
during
budget.
season, so
Yeah.
thank you for being here tonight and for being patient.
You may see here in a couple of weeks at tax rate setting time.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you.
much. We're
Thank you.
excited to have you
Thank
and
you.
appreciate
I'm
all
glad
you're
to be here.
doing.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to 5M, review and discuss select board work plan. I think my name is on that memo, so
I think it
I
is.
have to bear with a little more of me talking. So, there's a memo in the packet. I wanted to, so I asked John if there were updates from the staff side of the equation, because as you know, the work plan is composed of both the staff projects where they need agenda time and then board initiatives. And so the feedback that we got in summary is the Bliss Road improvements is really sort of up in the air. I'm going to put that into the unassigned bucket for now. We had a few agenda items for that in the summer, and those are just going to be in the unassigned bucket until it gets sorted out. Hazard mitigation plan, the board will receive a written update and a summary from Matt Osborne and a draft plan later this week, as I'm understanding. And then we're waiting for feedback from Vermont Emergency Management on our plan. And so those agenda items related to the hazard mitigation plan will also just move to the unassigned bucket until we get some feedback from staff on the Vermont Emergency Management response, and there may be some edits to the plan at that time, and then we'll see the plan. Town plan updates, there was one workshop and 2 public hearings. Planning and Development says that this is likely shifting to fall and winter, so I'll make those shifts. And one question that I would ask you, John, to feed back to, or to send back to Planning and Development, is if there are any state or statute-driven deadlines that we need to meet for an updated town plan. I believe there's something like every 7 or 8 years you're supposed to update the town plan. So I'm going to want to be mindful of those as we.
I will ask, but as I've heard the explanation that the town plan is not reviewed as a singular item, but it seems that chapters are always in process. And so I don't think it's a matter that on the 7th year, we hand over a new document containing all the updates of chapters. I think these get state review seriatim, if that's the right word. But I can get some better confirmation from Lori about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right now, we're looking at a fall-winter process, and it would be good to know whether there are any
Yep.
hard deadlines in there, because fall, it strikes me that the board will be pretty preoccupied with the budget, and if we do have some flexibility, we want to be able to understand where that is. Zoning regulations, we had one workshop and 2 public hearings, and this is likely being pushed to 2027. So I will update the annual work plan to reflect that, and I will send all of you the links to the annual work plan so that you have access to that information as well. At this point, we can switch over to the memo and the packet. And the intent of this is to, so I provided a summary of what I think are sort of the big chunks of work coming up, larger initiatives. And this exercise basically is to update our annual work plan, which we committed to in the February workshop. We created a version of it, and we said every quarter we're going to update this thing so that the plan reflects reality. So there have been some changes. There have been staff changes. There have been new initiatives on the board side and so forth. And then this table I've broken out by July, August, September, and then beyond. Sort of what I see as some of our big chunks of work. And what I was hoping to do is review those tonight, and also confirm or affirm the time frames. And then assign where needed. If we need a select board member to lead or be a point person on something, let's identify those. Yeah, so I'd like to just sort of go down through this list, if that's suitable.
Eric?
Mary?
Since, when you're looking at this, it says discussion, the table below is proposed outline of upcoming workshops, meetings, and board work expected to require significant select board time. I am wondering, since we have 2 people missing, that it wouldn't be better to wait until we have the full board, because I also had some questions, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, maybe it would be better for me to write my questions down and have that be answered when we're all together, because this affects all of us. And you said it requires significant select board time. And, I think we need to be there, all of us, because like you said, you have some leads, having a select board member and everything. So it just requires all of us and our input. And I just, as you've said already, it's 9:15. We don't do very well, as, we're approaching past 3 hours. And as you said, a couple of sessions ago, meetings ago, which was a quote from Dominic Cloud that our time, the scarcest resource is the select board time. And so maybe it's better to actually do this with all of us. I think it's really hard, and I know you want to get it under the belt and get it, out there and move, because we're a week away from July. But at the same time, it's like going through training and making decisions before people, if people aren't even here for that, they don't have an input, and we can't guarantee that everybody's going to be here, but I still think it's really important to wait until maybe the next meeting.
Thank you for that comment. I hear what you're saying. If I understand, at the July 7th meeting, someone else might be on vacation. You on vacation? Yeah. So we're gonna struggle here. To me, it's less about the quarterly process that we committed to, and more about making sure. So we've got some things coming up. For example, the second row in that table is about gathering the board's ideas and requests for information in preparation for budget season. And this is important because it's important to have this discussion now, because we need to figure out what we want to ask in anticipation of budget season, so that we're last season we were stuck, and maybe it happens more often than not. We were stuck in some difficult decisions. And so we want to anticipate those decision points, request information from staff, and give them time to respond accordingly. So there may be some things on this list that we want to hold off on and discuss as a larger group, particularly when the chair returns. But I wonder if we couldn't try to tick off a few, for example, that one in particular. So other thoughts before we dive deeper. So,
I think I really like this work, and it's kind of, to be honest with you, I wouldn't remain on the board if it was just sort of like administrative boilerplate all the time. You know, I see it as what I wrote down earlier was, you know, we need to define our work and how we get it done, right? And so I think that's an ongoing process, and you know, sometimes I think that we would benefit by like a Dominic Cloud or somebody that really is well versed on sort of that dynamic of like the select board and the work we should do and how we, you know, get the town manager engaged and get the staff engaged in the work of the community, right? And I think we still have a lot of opportunity to really refine and improve that. You know, I come into, you know, time goes by quickly, and we're going to get to another budget cycle quickly. So, you know, the two that for me I just took notes on earlier, you know, in preparing for this meeting was transfer station and Bugby. You know, I know those are two big stones that we're going to wrestle with as a community, and it's kind of like, I feel like it's really unfair to both Bugby and, you know, Public Works to not say, hey, these things are coming up and we want you to do some homework so that when we do hit that budget cycle, we have some data and some thinking that you can work with. And it's going to sneak up on us quickly. So I think we really need to, I like the idea of us alerting through John to staff, you know, some of the big pieces that we've talked about before. You know, we have some good things happening. We have the CIP plan. We have a little bit of that org development kind of study stuff going on. But hopefully those things will all meet when we get to the budget cycle, and we can say, oh, wow, cool. Like, we know more about that, and we can make a good decision instead. You know, last year I recall one in particular, and it's no reflection on them per se, because they had a committee and they were trying to do good work, but Bugby was sort of like, felt like this Indiana Jones thing where he's like grabbing his hat and the door's closing, you know, to try and get, you know, us to make important big decisions. So if we can avoid that, and we can do some talking and discussing meeting by meeting, you know, 20 minutes at a time or whatever, I think that'd be awesome. So, but I appreciate you creating this structure to at least talk about it. So.
other sort of broad brush thoughts before we sort of dive into. Okay, well, let's tackle these one by one and decide which ones we want to postpone when more of the board is present, and which ones we want to which ones have a sense of urgency, and then also, you know, be mindful of the clock. So with that said, the first one really is a Rethink Local-led CIP prioritization workshop. And at some point, we need to just get a special meeting date, I think, on the books for that. I think the consultant suggested about 3 hours. And so we can do that because that's logistics, meeting planning. We can do that by email, perhaps send out, or have RTL send out a poll. Maybe actually, if you wouldn't mind asking them to do that, poll the board. And in late July was what I was thinking, and I think that kind of fits into our work pretty well.
I just want to throw out this idea of polling, because we seem to wrestle with, you know, herding cats here sometimes. So, you know, I've seen, and I'm not well versed on this at all, but there are like great software instruments for like honing in on when people can meet. So if we could start using some of those tools, because I see emails flying around, and next thing you know, I'm just, you know, I don't know what's going on.
Agree 100%, Tim. The email threads are ridiculous. We should be using tools. I like the one, When is Good, because it's free and it's very, very simple to use. It's not all bulky, like When is Good.
When is good, okay.
But, you know,
Survey
Alex
Monkey or whatever.
Alex can use whatever he wants. but polls are important, but the board has to respond to the poll. Because that's the other thing. There are a lot of emails floating around because half the board responded to a poll.
Yeah.
The other half didn't.
Fair,
Not to
fair.
look
Fair critique.
too directly at anyone. But that makes it challenging. So we use polls, but everyone please respond to them.
Wait, is it me?
No, I didn't. I don't remember.
Let your conscience inform you.
It is, I'm like, do we have a
There will be a tar and feathering at 9:45.
I don't remember. Let's take it as a general comment. Next down on the list, the FY '27 budget prep. So this is what Tim was just commenting on, what I commented on earlier. My suggestion is that we assign a point person on the board to receive suggestions and proposals in various states from other board members, compile and consolidate that information and turn it into something sensible that we can discuss in a future board meeting, agree on the content of that, and then share that with town manager to be shared with staff members in anticipation of budget. So this would just be a document of asks, essentially. Whether it's about the Bugby or whether it's about the transfer station. In last year, we sat around talking about the data that would come to us after the discontinuation of curbside recycling and what that, that data that was collected. Former director of DPW gave us a lot of sense that that was going to be important for future decision-making. We want that. We want information on, Chief Kelly brought to us an ask for policing, acknowledging at the same time that she was using a per capita approach to reach the number. And she said that that's really wasn't the approach that she wanted to do, but she did it out of efficiency, just because she didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Does the board want to ask for performance-based allocations and police staffing, for example? So on and so forth. So a point person to accumulate all this stuff, turn it into something that's digestible and that we can review in a future meeting, or meetings, plural, if need be. And
Maybe
then,
together with your select board guidance on the budget.
right,
And it's interesting too, though, because it kind of goes, it sort of pushes each way, right? So if you have like a morning meeting with department heads and say, hey, the board the other night is really asking for like, what's the big stones you guys got going on this year? So we can kind of like start chewing on some of that stuff. I don't know, if we could get sort of a two-way process, I think that would be good and somehow kind of coalesce it,
I feel like we know a lot, we know about many of them. And so maybe the draft we start with our draft and feed it
what we know
and
what we don't know.
There'll be that, and see where we go from there. But so in this one, we're looking for a point person to basically be the accumulator, compiler, and bring that document to the board. You want to be that person?
I'm volunteering.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting I take the post, but I'm just.
All right. Well, I think you have it hands down. I see a lot of other competition.
You have it hands down because nobody else's hands came up.
So,
no, I think it's really important work, honestly.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Tim, and we will, let's say, over the course of at least the next couple of weeks, send information to Tim to compile. Do we want to try to? I feel like the July 7th agenda might have a lot of stuff on it, and that maybe we should target the July 21st agenda.
Yeah, I think that's probably makes sense because it's going to take a little time to pull that together.
So we're sending stuff to you in advance, well, in a few days in advance of July 21, right? So let's look at a calendar quickly here.
I will email the board to kind of create a tickler, guys, on that.
Great.
And then I anticipate that when Miranda recovers, she will take over that other position I volunteered for.
So the memo that you would have to prepare and the information, Tim, would go to John by the 16th. And so board members maybe should aim for the July 10th date to get information to Tim.
Okay, I'll try and push something out tomorrow around this topic.
Yeah. Okay, great. Any other thoughts on that one before we move on? Excellent. Next is CIP public engagement. This is included as an optional step in RTL's timeline, and I've been, I couldn't quite connect with Alex today on this. I'm trying to understand who's going to run this thing,
Yeah.
and some of the other details. So I believe at this point in the process, it is more focused on education and information to the public, and perhaps less about gathering input, because this actually follows the board's prioritization. So to me, it seems illogical the board would prioritize a bunch of work and then ask the public for their input. So I think this is going to be more of an information and education session, and maybe an invitation to maybe contribute some thoughts that could change this year's plan, but probably more likely would be incorporated into a future plan. So I need to follow up with Alex on that one, and I will get back to you all about what that looks like, and most importantly, who owns this thing and who's running it. From the RTL documentation, it's not really clear to me. And maybe, John, it's more clear to you.
No, I'm with you on that.
Okay, good, we'll get to the bottom of that. So I have an exchange with Alex, because I think in our last agenda setting, I had the questions and said, and I think you and I are basically, well, just go talk to Alex then. So, all right, Braver Angels Community Leaders workshop. This was included in the engagement plan that Miranda and Ida presented. So we have this scheduled for August 25th. What I didn't know was who's the point person from the board that's making this thing happen.
I want to say that is Miranda.
That's what I thought too.
That she's been coordinating with Beth from Braver Angels. So I say that with caution. but-
Okay, I will circle back with her and make sure that is in fact the case.
Okay.
It's interesting. Are you ready to go on to your next topic, sir?
Just want to make a note here. Okay, what is next? Public safety listening session. Did you have something before that, Tim?
No, I just was thinking about sequencing there, but it looks like you kind of addressed that in the sense that obviously the facility need and what we would create moving into the future is really driven or shaped by these listening sessions and kind of discussion around that. So, and it looks like you have that correctly, because you have, the only concern I have is that, are we blowing it by not trying to get into this fiscal cycle in some fashion? Like if you recall with Bugby, the challenge was we need a study, but then it kind of almost missed the cart. So should we at least be trying to get some type of RFP study or something in this budget cycle? Otherwise, we're going to miss an entire year again with.
We may well miss an entire year, and that, and you're really hitting on the very last item in the table, which is the Public Safety Service and Facility Needs Committee, which we spoke about during the February 22nd workshop. And I moved that out because I don't think we have capacity to do the work. That's part of this exercise, is just recognizing that we may be overloaded, and also that when we spoke about that, when we spoke about this last year, and the reason we told Chief Kelly we're not ready to go ahead with this, or one of the reasons, was we want a facilities manager on staff to weigh in and be part of this process. And also we wanted to understand from the community side what the community policing needs are, what public service needs are more generally, and use that to drive the facility needs. And so when I looked at our current workload, what everyone's doing, the length of our meetings and so on and so forth, I don't know that there's another good way around this. And also, we don't have a facilities manager on staff yet. So I moved this out to January or February to get started, and acknowledge that it might not make it into the, we might not be able to do anything in the FY28 budget cycle, and maybe the chief has a counterpoint to that.
But it does make sense to me that knowing proper staffing levels will help drive the discussion about what the needs are for space. So I do think that at least we're moving forward earlier on with that assessment or discussion.
Yeah, it's not all bad news. Like,
Right.
we're still making some progress. Thank you for shining a little bit of light on the good news. So the public let's see, where was I? The public safety listening session was included in the engagement plan that Miranda and Ida produced and the board approved. So that focuses on how taxpayers want to spend their money. In my assessment, we need both a facilitator for that workshop, and then we need to, the board, since it's a board initiated activity, we need to frame it up. We need to sort of set some expectations, and some of those expectations are going to be, what data do we need? What information and presentations do we need from staff? We're going to be inviting the public into the room, and we're going to be asking them if you had $1, where would you put it? And so they need to understand what we're already doing for public safety and the ramifications of trade-offs. If there's going to be an effective discussion where the outcome of that discussion is something that's actionable, we need to set up for that. So if we're going to do this, we need one or more board members to sort of take the point and run with this and make sure that we're ready for a September workshop. And so
It's interesting though, like you're limiting it to public safety, because I have to say, like going back to, this concept of, every year I feel like budgets are sometimes a guess. Like we're kind of guessing on what the community wants or needs and not necessarily always engaging them in that process. So the idea for me would be, this is a very rough example, but if you went out to the community and said, hey, we have transfer station, Bugby, and a very likely new police building. Let's just pretend those were the three. And then you would have an engaging conversation about, kind of this nature that you're like, hey, if you want to see significant forward progress on these, or we only have $1 to spend and you have to pick from these three, what do you think? And it gets some pulse or sense of the community. And I don't think we do that enough. I think we need to be better at articulating the needs of the community and then going back out to the community and saying, hey, we don't have all the money in the world. We gotta make some tough choices here. What do you think? And getting that whether that's a survey instrument or what that looks like. But I think we could do better work there. So that we're not coming in and you said that, well, Connie's gonna have to wait on the building. Well, what if the entire community says, oh my God, they've been waiting for a better police station for 10 years and they're sick of it and they feel like it's really important? I don't know that.
I think part of the answer is in the previous discussion about CIP prioritization, right? So I would have said that discussion preceded the board's prioritization workshop. That's not how the consultant laid it out for whatever reason, right? Like I would think that you'd want to go out and collect this information from the public. Like where do you think the needs are, and what would you vote on in terms of priorities, and that would drive. But there's an argument that suggests that staff also should be weighing in on that.
Correct.
And I think that's where.
And they are the dominant input for
We
the
think local
CIP.
is right, taking staff input first, and then bringing it to the select board for prioritization in this particular cycle. In future cycles, I do think that we should shift that a little bit.
But my cynical answer there would be that on occasion, you could have a situation where that staff input point is wrong. It's not picking up the ground data of what's important in the community and what needs to get done. And it obviously priority shift, and year to year, you're always kind of wrestling with that. But I just feel like we should visit that process and say like, all right, like I'll give you another sore one is like Fairview Terrace stuff. I know people are so pent up, frustrated with that one, right? Like, why isn't it done? And we know we have this, right away, or whatever it's called, but.
We've got 4 of the 5 in our pocket now,
So,
working on one.
that's just another example of one that I would expect in the community if you went out and said, hey, how important is it for you to get this done this year or within 2 years or something? That might be pretty hot.
So this listening session, you're right, it's focused on public safety, and it was part of the engagement plan that the board approved. So this is a plan that Miranda and Ida brought to the board, and we approved it. And so all I'm doing is reflecting it back in here and just saying, hey, people, we said we were gonna do this.
Yep.
If we're gonna do it right, there's some groundwork to be done, and someone needs to raise their hand for that. And so maybe this is, to Mary's point, maybe this is we need Miranda and Ida here to continue this discussion.
Yep.
So maybe we put a pin in that one for now.
Put a pin on the public safety listening session, but then are we still gonna go down and talk about the others, or you're saying put a pin in the whole topic?
On that one in particular.
Okay.
Our quote-unquote affordability summit, we said we moved that to September. We didn't pick a date, so we can do another poll for that.
Can I say something about that one?
Please do.
So I have not, I actually just sent Eric, you and Ida an email. Both Resilient Hartford and Housing and Homelessness committees are super excited about this, are totally into it, are interested in cross-committee collaboration, but we've kind of realized that what the board asked for to be brought to this summit included a proposal of work, scope, budget, and funding sources, which between, limited committee membership on top of people who are on summer vacations in July and August, it just is not feasible, I don't think. I have not spoken to the Energy Commission, and that was part of my email to Ida, if she wanted to chat with them. But the idea that Resilient Hartford and Housing and Homelessness were interested in was that we actually push the special meeting forward again to early August, and that summit be kind of the launching pad so that the cross-committee collaborations can really get rooted, and that then the work to create those proposals and scopes can happen with the committees reporting back sometime in either October or November, if that's amenable for like budgetary considerations, which may come up. So that was, I haven't okayed that with chair of HEC, but yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, so sort of a brainstorming session that brings everybody into the room, and then they go off and get down to brass tacks on, sort of more proposal details. John?
A lot of the liaisons to these committees are overseen by folks in the planning department. And Lori has said they're compiling some feedback on this whole idea, which hopefully will be in your hands soon. This idea of an affordability summit or a special meeting, so.
From specifically staff liaisons?
From the folks that work with the committees that have been discussed, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know to what extent that might overlap with what you're hearing, but so Lori has told me that to expect something from them on that.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like it's on the calendar for September, but we have a proposal on the table to move it forward to August and sort of shift the attention from reviewing proposals to brainstorming and setting us up for. I'm perfectly amenable to that. I basically want, I think to me the criteria is what's going to be most successful. And if we're trying to pile more onto people's plates than they can handle, that's not the right recipe. So I'm amenable to that. I don't remember whether we approved this last. We did a bunch of. We shifted a bunch of presentations by committees and commissions around to make this happen last time. And so we would want to revisit that, I believe.
Yeah, well, oh, you mean like the committees that aren't involved in well, we only shifted the dates of the committees that were involved with this.
Yes.
So we would just be changing the date we picked in September to a date in August.
Yeah, I think it's actually a reversion to the earlier plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. We're just sort of rolling back
Yes.
to the earlier plan. So do we want to test the board appetite for that rollback?
It's fine. Well, August 30 feels tight. I think, we should kind of leave it where it is. I think for me, like a lot of these things, it's sort of the formatting. Like I get very excited about the idea of just kind of an open chat about a particular topic, but it's also like the outcome. So, I think we should be thinking about when we engage groups and get them together to talk about something. I almost feel like we would benefit by like a really well-versed facilitator that knows how to like really take a group and get good outcomes and output from it when you do get together. And I love the idea, but I've seen it either go really well or a complete waste of time. So it's like somewhere in between, hopefully, that I think this is a great idea to take these two committees and kind of blend it and have a meaningful discussion, but it's like, what does that structure look like? Is it a break up into groups and do your famous, chart things and bring them back together kind of thing? Like we should think about what that should look like and what we hope will be the outcomes.
Yeah, to respond to that, so, the committees have requested moving it up to August so that they can, so that they have more time between kind of the kickoff and the time that the proposal would need to be done. So so the concern is that if we wait until September to do that, now they have one less month of actual time to work that out. And I think you're 100% right that we need to be thoughtful about how we structure it. And I think, certainly the intention that I've laid out with the committees that I'm a liaison to is that like we already have some ideas, and both committees spent time, a good amount of time in the last in June's meetings talking about it, but the gaps were, well, maybe Energy Commission would want to do this with housing, and maybe housing would want to do this with Resilient Hartford. And I think with how stretched all the volunteer committees are, it just feels like a really heavy load to make all of those potential coordinations happen without being in the same room with everyone. So I think we should, though, lay out some clear outcomes and structure to that meeting. And I'm happy to work with the committee chairs and anyone else on the board, or John, or staff liaisons to help structure that, so that you're right, we don't just kind of end up spending 3 hours and everyone walks out and is like, so what are we doing? I think that's a very possible outcome if you don't structure it right. I wish we had the time to get a facilitator, that'd be probably the most efficient.
Yeah.
But I just don't think we have the time.
Okay. So I'm just making a note, or a few notes. So roll that back to August, and also roll back to the original presentations by both HEC, the Resilient Hartford, and Housing and Homelessness.
Now, to put those on a regular meeting means what, the 4th or the 18th? But if you want a standalone special meeting, we're talking the 11th or the 25th.
Right, and the 25th, we have something already.
Right, Braver Angels, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you've narrowed it for us quite effectively. John, we're talking about August 11th, right?
Okay.
Yeah, which makes sense. And then as far as the reporting structure, right, if the special meeting is now the brainstorm, I think the question is, do we need to do another special meeting in October and November to hear the proposals, or can we just tag those into the October and November regular board meetings with a report from each committee? I guess it could be challenging if there are partnerships to schedule that ahead of time.
I'm not sure that we need to answer that right now.
Love that.
Yeah, so let's, I appreciate you raising your hand to help structure this thing, and I'm happy to help as well. And sort of pick up wherever there are logistics that need to be done. So let's plan on an August brainstorming event, and to Tim's point, which I think is very good, is getting that structure in place so we're not just sort of fumbling around. So August 11th is.
Expect there's probably a template out there that, gives you sort of a good guideline for when you do these types of things, how you can structure them to get good outcomes.
Yeah, I think a lot of
I'm
those.
gonna ask AI later tonight. See what he has to say.
Let me know what you find.
Next up on the list, joint school board select board meeting. This was on the select board calendar of events that we've been carrying around with us for some time now, and it used to be, it was in May. The school district has said, no, we're not, we can't do that in May or during the summer months. And so I think they're maybe suggesting September or October. So we have two things to decide. One, do we want to do this? Because we don't have to. If we don't know what we're going to talk about, there's no point in doing it. But two, if we're going to do it, we need someone to be the point and to help set an agenda so that we.
The feedback I've heard from Tim and Nancy, who might be collaborating on this, is that in the past, they have not been terribly productive. Doesn't mean they can't be.
Yeah, so I reached out to Nancy today or yesterday, getting fuzzy. Suggested a preliminary meeting to talk about this, like what are the topics, what are some of the things, and I think I have a pretty good sense of why they failed previously, or were not particularly productive. And I think I have a pretty good sense of some of the interfacing topics that could be very engaging to talk about. So I will be meeting with Nancy by coffee or so on to talk about that, and maybe reach to the superintendent as well, and just sort of say, this is just an open conversation about what are the opportunities that we might have as town and school to meet and talk about particular topics. But we're targeting October for that to actually happen.
Those are guesses. I think
Okay.
that's probably something that you could confirm during that preliminary.
Seems like
meeting.
October's good for them in the sense that school starts in September, and there might be a good, little brief point for them, so.
I would say that after October, we would have to wait until the following
I would
calendar
agree.
year.
But I'll target October for it will be formatted for productivity, hopefully.
I like that phrase, formatted for productivity.
Yeah.
I'm gonna coin that one.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, like, if that I think it's overall a valuable tool and process. And if we can't make it happen this year, it does feel kind of lowest on my priorities, looking at this, big list, and of course, all the other work we'll do for the next 6 months, but
it's important.
Yeah, thanks for.
It's on the calendar, and I don't like to just sort of skip over things.
Yeah.
I think we need to be intentional about the decision-making, so we'll look to hear back from you, Tim, on that in a preliminary meeting and decide whether it makes sense or whether we don't hold that this year.
Here you go.
Strategic Vision Workshop. This is something we talked about a number of times because of the workload. And because of the focus on affordability, sort of doing something that's right in front of us and that's immediate and has immediate needs, I've suggested that we push this until January and maybe combine it with the annual work plan workshop, which if we get better at developing the annual work plan, we can spend less time on that and more time on the future looking stuff. So that's kind of my proposal to the board.
Yeah, I like
Good.
that.
Intro to systems thinking, there's still a possibility of this happening. I know we lost contact with the guy who would be the facilitator, but then he reached out and said he's still interested. So again, this would be more of a winter thing if we have capacity and if we have interest. And so we'll weigh in on that again. And then the public safety service facility needs, we've spoken about that already, and I don't think we have the capacity to do anything on that, but as John has pointed out, we're with the budget-related requests for information, we could still be making some forward progress. That is all I have. Anything else from other board members on this particular agenda?
I have, I would just suggest that we consider a placeholder. I'm calling it the finance worldview, and it has to do with us getting better educated on kind of bonding, taxation, just the whole financial realm as a town. And I think it's worth having, just maybe if it's just at least there, that we can think about it. But I really think that it's an area that Hartford is gonna really wrestle with moving forward, revenue and expense and what that should look like, what it can look like. Obviously we've done different taxation strategies and so on, but long-term, 10, 15 years out, it's gonna be a real challenge with the current models that we have to operate the town.
Okay, I think I feel like I need to understand more about your thoughts are on that. And maybe I'm happy to sort of take that offline unless the board is willing to dive into that deeper.
If anyone is expecting the bond bank to say you borrow too little or too much, forget it. They're worse than lawyers, and they will tell you that whatever your community feels comfortable with,
Whatever you feel.
And they might give you some benchmarks to work with. 'Cause I've tried.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thanks for all your work on keeping us on track with this, Eric. I think this is really important.
Yeah, the work is definitely appreciated.
You're welcome, and I think, again, always we need to adjust based on circumstances, capacity, whatever, things come up, and so that we want to just be open to that. Back to the agenda, where does that put us? So I think that brings us to commission and committee reports, maybe?
Yeah.
Commission reports, I'm going to start with you, Mike.
I have no commission reports.
Okay, Mary?
Yes, as you probably heard, Sister Cities, we had our meeting the night before Block Party, so much of the discussion was on the planning, but we also discovered, you may already know this, John, that Laura Cooney has been trying to get a hold of Bonnie at Red Door Signs, has not gotten any response from her. So that's still up in the air. And I presented the committee with a copy of the issues that were brought up about the committees and commissions and goals and things. And so they are going to look that, we're gonna work on that at our next meeting, as Allison said. I do have a question that someone asked, one of the members of the committee asked me, and I'm gonna ask you, Eric, or because Miranda's not here. The person asked if this was an AI-produced paper, the 12 pages or 14 pages.
It's not.
Okay. They just wondered, so.
That's a compliment to
I
Eric.
might write like a computer. I spent 20 years writing technical specifications, so, yeah. Okay, thank you.
The human beats AI. That's a victory right there for the night.
Thank you, Mary. I have no commission and committee reports, so on to you, Tim.
Nor do I.
Ashley?
I think I summed up our affordability discussions pretty well, which took up most of this month's meetings. But the other thing I'll just throw out there is that Resilient Hartford is continuing to do work days at the Food Forest in West Hartford at Clifford Park. And they have dates that I think are posted on the town website that you can come out and do work days for July and August. Dates should be posted soon. So it's a lot of fun. It's a really cool initiative, and I encourage people to go sign up and help out at the Wildflower Meadow and Edible Food Path.
Live edible food.
Live edible food.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. That concludes commission reports. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda? And note that Tim has brought to my attention that we have a town manager selection committee meeting scheduled on July 2nd. So in terms of future meetings approved, we would want to include July 2nd.
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion. Ashley?
I move that the select board approve payroll ending 6/20/26, approve the AP manifest 6/19/2026 and 6/25/2026, approve meeting minutes of 6/9/2026, and approve future meetings of 6/30/2026, 7/1/2026, 7/2/2026, 7/7/2026, and 7/21/2026.
A motion, is there a second? Mike seconds it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? No. Motion carries. The consent agenda is approved.
Make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
We have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's a non-debatable motion. So all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.